welcome to Free Talk Live. The number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We had a special guest scheduled tonight. He's not answering the phone, unfortunately, so I've sent an email out to Ron Paul's people.
His handlers.
To see his handlers, to see what's going on.
Well, we have handlers. Ron Paul has, like, assistants.
He's got people. Yeah. He's got folks that schedule things for him. And last time we had Ron Paul on, it's, I don't know, been most of a decade. It feels like, at least. It's been quite a while since we've had him here. And he picked up the phone right away last time. I confirmed the number. Definitely it's Ron Paul's number. So he's just not at home or something else.
If anyone has some questions for him, you can probably call right now, but you're not going to be able to call when we go.
That's a good idea.
That's the thing. If you call now, obviously we're not going to be able to put you on with him. And secondly, we had discussed whether or not to even put callers on with Ron, because the problem we encountered last time we had Ron Paul on was, like, you get ramblers that call in and they just can't get to the point or to the question that they wanted to ask Ron. They want to tell a story, or just they can't just get to the point. So
right, but if we take the callers now, they wouldn't be on with Ron.
I guess. What I had said on the air earlier was, if you got a question for Ron Paul, we will accept them via our Mastodon system over at social.freetalklive.com. That is our social media platform, and anybody who tags at FTL, which is the Free Talk Live account there, we can consider that as a question, because then you've got to be succinct, right? You got to put a question in text. You got to think about it in advance and put it there, and we will see here what is said.
It would definitely be better to have people do that than, call in, because I know some of our callers, and I love our callers to death, but some of them struggle to get to the point.
Yeah. Exactly. And so that's why I wanted to change that up, just because Ron's time is valuable, right? He's a busy guy, even though he's, what did you say, 86 years old?
86 years old.
Conan?
Amazing. And he's probably still riding his bike around, too.
I'm sure he is, man.
That was one of my questions, actually. I was curious as to
really?
what his goal, because when he was running for president in 2012, he was doing, I don't know how many miles a day or whatever, riding a bike around. And it's like, whenever you think of a 76-year-old, because again, that was 10 years ago now, you don't think of.
And how old is Biden?
Biden is
almost 80, I think.
Yeah, he's old. He's too old.
Too old.
But
he's had his brain open too many times. You start cutting heads open, and that's you're going to get mental problems, mental deficiencies.
What do you mean his head was cut open?
He had an aneurysm removed twice.
Biden did?
Yeah, he had his whole head open.
Didn't Ron Paul have like a minor stroke or something like that?
I think he did. There was something that happened.
But he was like back to work within a few days, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that I was excited, and we are going to get him on here at some point. If it's not tonight, and by the way, I did get a response already from his booking agent, and he says he's checking on it. So we'll see if there's an update here as the show goes on. But when it was reached out to me and we were invited to, hey, do you guys want to have Ron Paul on? I said, well, did he write another book? Or because normally you don't get normally there's not like a publicity agent reaching out to book guests unless that person's got something that they've just come out with, right? And they want to promote this thing. And it's like, no, he's just Ron Paul doing what Ron Paul does, which is talking about freedom all the time. On
his show, I think it's called The Liberty Report.
Yeah, he did mention he's got The Liberty Report, and that is a nearly daily show, by the way. So if you go to the Liberty Radio Network, it's one of the daily podcasts that we have on the Liberty Radio Network. And there's a bunch of libertarian podcasts out there in the world. There's dozens of them. I mean, LRN.FM's got maybe 3 dozen libertarian shows. There's more than that I just don't know about.
Oh, I'm sure there's tens of thousands.
I don't know about that, but there's probably
all
at
it
least
takes
a few
to have
dozen.
a podcast. I'm sure most of them aren't very good, but all it really takes to have a podcast is a $5 headset from Walmart and Audacity.
I think they're up to like 4 billion podcasters right now.
Yeah, but they're not all libertarians.
Well, but if you consider that number right there from the get-go.
4 billion?
I don't think there are 4 billion. There's not even 4
billion.
That's
the planet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was going to say,
billion.
There's not even 4 billion people that have access to the internet.
Just pulled a Biden. I'm walking it back. My teleprompter was grayed out for a second.
I think that's an Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez one.
That's better analogy.
Yeah. You didn't start talking about how Corn Pop was a bad dude, so you didn't pull a Biden yet.
I liked Corn Pop. He's a cool dude.
He seemed like an interesting character.
He started out rough, but he turned out to be a pretty cool dude. He's got kids and he's settled down.
Who in the hell are you talking about?
Corn Pop.
Who is Corn Pop?
He's Biden's buddy.
You guys vamp. I'm told Ron Paul is at the phone, but we have no producers, so I got to dial him up.
Yeah, absolutely. So hold on. We got to get back to this Corn Pop thing. Are you talking about the same Corn Pop that Joe Biden is talking?
Exactly. I was going off the cuff, making something up. You're passing the time.
Okay, gotcha. But see, Joe Biden wasn't making something up. He was talking about some dude who...
How do you know? I think he made the whole thing up. Even the little kid that was on his leg stroking his leg hairs.
There's no way he made that up, man. There's just no way.
Yeah, he probably made it up. He was probably dreaming and he was fantasizing about the little kid on his lap.
Have you seen the cartoon of that? The cartoon? Someone took that speech of Joe Biden talking about this pool experience, about how he learned about roaches and how kids love jumping on his lap and he loves kids. It is really cringy and really creepy. Someone took that and they animated it. And they made a cartoon of him with like little kids stroking his leg hairs and he's holding their heads underwater. It's really amusing and it's not terribly unusual. I mean, the animation is not terribly out of sync with what he's actually saying.
Yeah, isn't it called like Liberty Tunes or something?
I don't know.
Freedom Tunes.
Is that?
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
Like 2 years ago when we first found out about Corn Pop. That was many, many years ago.
They didn't do one for Corn Pop, sadly. At least not one that I saw. And I think that would have been amusing because Corn Pop is a much more interesting... I mean, the kid stroking his leg hair, that's an interesting story. But then he just rambles off about Corn Pop for 5 minutes. That's way more amusing.
All right, we're going to our expected guest. He is at the phone, at the ready. Ron Paul, Dr. Ron Paul is with us here from his home in Texas. Good evening.
Good evening. Nice to be with you.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have you back on the air. I don't remember the last time we had you on, Ron. It was years ago. It might have been the 2012 campaign. It might have been 10 years. I feel like we've had you on since then at some point, but we generally don't have guests on this show. But somebody called me up from one of the guest booking services and said, "Hey, I know you guys don't like guests on Free Talk Live, but I can get you Ron Paul." And I said, "Thank you for calling. Yes, we will absolutely have Ron Paul on this show."
Always an exception.
Yeah, you are the exception. So welcome back to Free Talk Live.
Good to be with you. Anyway, we're Tuesday also.
Yeah, and you should be because your time is valuable, and I appreciate you spending some of it with us tonight here and our listeners. We, of course, have a lot of questions. You know, you're a huge influence in the libertarian space. You've run 3 campaigns for president going back to 1988 and then, of course, 2008 and 2012. Many people have been brought on board with the ideas of liberty by your outreach, your actions. And the thing that I thought was so impressive, just first off, because I asked the guy that was booking you on the show, I said, does he have a new book or something? Like, is he promoting something? It's like, no, Ron's just doing the thing he does for liberty, which is talk about it constantly, every chance, every opportunity. You're now 86 years old, and you're going strong.
Well, and I'm very, very grateful, you know. And it is true that my subject is the same because it was that subject that got my interest, and I had the interest before I ever ran for anything, but I didn't run for Congress because I thought, oh, boy, wouldn't it be neat to be in Congress? It was to get a message out, and I was influenced by a famous date that, if you know me, you probably have heard me mention, and that was August 15th of 1971, when the gold standard disappeared and wage and price controls came, and they ushered in this new age of massive inflation. And now we're coming to a climactic end of that system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it amazed me today when I saw in the news that the Biden administration and the White House and the Fed, they're saying, oh, we were totally caught off guard by the inflation. And of course, they're talking about inflation like it's an increase in prices. And of course, we know better than that. But even so, to think they didn't see it coming, that's an outright lie on their part.
And to blame it on Putin.
They do. I think they sort of let that.
I don't know whether it's lying, and it could be, or whether it's just stupidity. You know, it could be a mixture of
both. Ron, stand by. We're going to bring you back here in just a moment. I'm sure listeners have questions. We got a bunch of questions. I know, Conan, you've got a really interesting one about corruption, power corrupting. We're going to get into that with Dr. Paul, who spent a lot of time in D.C. We're coming up. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com. Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and welcome to the program. We have a special guest on the line here. We're going to bring him back on in just a moment, but I do want to remind you, you can join us any old time you want over at freetalklive.com. We have a variety of features waiting for you there, including our social media platform, which we mentioned to you earlier, over at social.freetalklive.com. That is where you can interact with Free Talk Live hosts and other listeners of the program. And you can do it without having the evil big tech corporate media hanging over your head. It's our platform. We run it on our server. and it's free for you over at social.freetalklive.com. It's a Mastodon thing, so it's connected with all the other Mastodons out there, unless they've disconnected from us, which is their choice. That's why it's called Federation. But we go back to Dr. Ron Paul. You know him, you love him, and we're grateful to have him here. Ron, thank you for spending up to the entire hour here with us. We've got a lot of questions for you. I just want to make sure you're still there. Are you with us?
I'm with you, and I'm all set.
Excellent. So it's been a decade since your last campaign for president. You retired from being a U.S. House representative after, a dozen terms or something like that, spending way too much time in D.C. It's most people would have gotten corrupted. Conan, you wanted to talk about the corruption issue. We know that power corrupts. How did it not corrupt Ron Paul? What was your question for Ron?
Dr. Paul, you were in Congress for 16 years?
Well, I was in 3 different times, so I always have to stop and think about it. No, I think it was about 23 total.
That's a lot longer than I had thought.
Yeah, but and it the last time I was in, I was for I think it was 6 terms. But when I first went in, I was there for 6 years, and it wasn't my thing. I didn't think I was ever going there. That wasn't my goal. And I thought, I'm missing medicine. So I decided I'm going back to medicine. I did. I went back for 12 years, but I stayed interested. But from the very beginning, it was always gnawing at me about, the liberty movement and the liberty ideas, and mainly my exposure to Austrian economics. It fascinated me, especially the monetary policy. So I was starting to speak out on that, even before I decided, well, I might get a bigger audience if I run for Congress. And that of course, led to something, because my wife was worried about that. She said, what are you going to do that for? I said, what's the matter? She said, it was dangerous. She says, you probably are going to get elected. So I guaranteed her that people like me don't get elected. I'm not promising that I'm going to give away. All I want to do is work for their freedom.
Right.
She says, they're going to believe you and they're going to elect you. So, and I was the cynic. I said, no, there's no way.
It happened.
Santa Claus.
And then again and again. But how did
I have a shorter question. Well, it'll have a shorter answer, so I want to ask you real quick. You mentioned the liberty movement back then when you first ran for office. There wasn't really a liberty movement to speak of back then, was there? I mean, you were sort of the lone voice championing the cause of liberty.
Well, yeah, it was small, but it was there, and I got exposed to it actually through the monetary issue in the 1960s, because that's when it was well known, and it was being announced that, the Bretton Woods can't be maintained. We were spending all this money. This artificial $35 an ounce won't last, and therefore I was fascinated with that. And but in that movement was where the libertarians were. Just as now they're still interested in the monetary issue and trying to protect against the evolving and disastrous effect of what's happening to the dollar. So it's still the same issue, but I think we're in a lot more danger right now. So it was that issue, and then the combination came. It was the issue of money that I talked about a lot at first, but then it was just the issue of liberty. And then after I got to Washington, all I knew was I ran across these people that both sides of the aisle, all they were doing was agitating for war, and war spending in the military-industrial complex. So and then Bush was in office, and I don't know if you know this, but Bush was sort of a warmonger. So I had a job there, and during that time, I gave a lot of speeches on why we shouldn't go into Iraq and into Afghanistan. Here we were in Iraq 20 years, and in Afghanistan for 19 years, but we're still there. Is the whole purpose, and we're still looking around for another fight. We're up there trying to start a World War III up there in Ukraine, and then at the same time, that doesn't keep us busy enough, and we don't spend enough money. So they're trying to stir up trouble with the Chinese. So we threaten them too. So it's perpetual war and conflict, perpetual spending, perpetual inflation, and it's not going to last. It's amazing that it's limped along this way. But the warning sign is when the average person knows that the prices are going up, they're paying their bill. That's the tax for all this, and people are now. That's the biggest issue of the day. It will be for this year's election, and that is the cost of gasoline and the cost of groceries, and that as a message, but we have to have people explaining that to us to a degree because it's not complicated. It's nothing more than a tax because they're stealing the wealth from the capital that you have in order to pay the bills that have been run up for all this years.
Right. It's a hidden tax. Inflation is an increase in the money supply, and you kind of got into this earlier, Arya, where you pointed out that the mainstream media, the politicians always talk about inflation as though it's just this mysterious rise in prices. And we know that that's just a symptom. And I want to talk more about the money aspect. But Conan, I don't think you ever really asked your question, right, about corruption?
One of my biggest concerns with fresh-faced politicians who are just getting into the business is this idea that power corrupts. As soon as they get in there, maybe a couple, 2 or 3 years, they're fine. They're working with the liberty movement, and then they just kind of turn to the dark side over time. And the next thing you know, they're in some lobbyist's pocket, and and their buddy politicians' pockets, and they're all working together behind the scenes. And but you say you were in for 20-something years, and you seem like a pretty decent dude. And I guess my question is, especially considering here in New Hampshire, we have a lot of liberty-loving, freedom-loving politicians, representatives, this being the Live Free or Die state and the home of the Free State Project. What would be your advice to these fresh politicians who are just getting into the scene? What would be your advice for them to retain their ideals, their liberty-loving ideals, and to stay corruption-free and to stay on the light side?
Okay, and I think you're alluding to the fact that some people will be talking a pretty good message and they're running for office, and some will go into office. Is that the set that you're talking about?
Yeah, and there is the concept that, the question is, does power corrupt, or do these positions actually attract people who want that power from the get-go? So it's, is it egg or chicken kind of a question?
Yeah. And that is it. That's just a truism that's been around probably throughout all of history. That is a corrupting influence, and that's why supposedly we're supposed to have a government to protect us against this government collusion and the power that they use against the people. But it doesn't happen that way. The people, especially in our system, what happened, we became so prosperous because we had more freedom than average, and they concentrated more on the wonderful abundance and forgot about talking about how we got here. And that was either at the beginning of our country or 110 years ago before we had the progressive movement. The people, didn't they assumed that it was going to be there. But I think that that's what the battle is for right now. The corruption.
Dr.
The corruption
Paul, hold
isn't
that thought. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Moments. We'll continue in just moments. Stand by. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off, now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or anytime on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. Russian forces are reported to have struck a tank containing nitric acid in the eastern Ukrainian city of Severo, Donetsk. It's now ground zero in the Kremlin's efforts to annex the Donbass. In light of the blast at the Azot chemical works, members of the public are being advised to remain in shelters and to wear masks. EU leaders have reached agreement to ban 90% of Russian oil from the bloc, but Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban secured a carve-out that will allow some pipeline imports to continue. Naomi O'Leary is Brussels correspondent for the Irish Times.
The initial proposal was for all Russian oil, and this tweak was necessary to win the consensus, particularly to win over Hungary, which relies on that pipeline oil. So It means that the ban will cover 2/3 of all Russian oil imports, because 2/3 of Russian oil imports come by sea. The carve out for Hungary in particular, we will see. It's a big open question. How long will this last? Will it have any knock-on effects? Surprising things such as, I don't know, could Hungary try and sell on this oil, or could there be some sort of skullduggery? These are the details that are going to be worked out by diplomats in the coming days.
In other news, one woman was killed and 2 people injured in a shooting today outside a high school graduation in New Orleans. Police say a fight broke out between 2 women outside the university complex where the graduation was taking place. President Biden says he will meet with Republicans in Congress to discuss limited gun control proposals that are being debated on Capitol Hill. Meanwhile, the first funerals of the 19 children and 2 teachers killed 1 week ago at the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde have taken place. A jury has acquitted a former lawyer for Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign of charges that he lied to the FBI about Donald Trump's ties to Russia. FSN's U.S. correspondent Ara Spitzer reports.
A prosecutor originally appointed by the Trump administration had accused Michael Sussman of trying to illegally damage the Trump campaign by bringing up suspicions about a possible link between the campaign and the Kremlin-linked Alpha Bank to the FBI. The case centered on whether Sussman was acting on behalf of the Clinton campaign by bringing up the allegations, which were quickly dismissed. The verdict is a setback for Trump and his supporters, who have long alleged a conspiracy to damage his campaign by fabricating links between the former president and Moscow. Russia interfered in the 2016 election in favor of Trump in various ways, including through hacking, claims that Moscow denies.
The actor Kevin Spacey says that he will travel to the UK to face sexual assault charges. Last week, the Crown Prosecution Service authorised criminal charges to be brought against the actor. He says that he is determined to travel in order to prove his innocence. From bureaus worldwide, this is FS.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and you'll be able to join us here. The phones will be open once we've got Ron Paul all wrapped up and done for the night. We've got 2 full hours of regular Free Talk Live that will start at 8 o'clock at night Eastern Time. Meanwhile, we've got Ron Paul for the remainder of this hour. And, of course, you can find him online prolifically. He is still busy every single day with the Ron Paul Liberty Report. And I want to bring Ron Paul back on with us. Dr. Paul, welcome back. Thanks for sticking with us here on Free Talk Live.
Good.
So you were in the middle of answering a question that Conan asked, and he was curious about the corrupting influence of power. And Conan, you sort of asked it as though it was a question, but there have been scientific studies that have shown clearly that power corrupts human beings. And yet somehow, Dr. Paul, you avoided that, or at least from the outside, it seems as though you've avoided that pretty successfully from your multiple terms in Congress.
Whenever someone mentions, it's impossible to get a politician who just can't be corrupted, Ron Paul is always the one I go to. Well, no, it's not impossible. It's just exceedingly rare.
Did they try to corrupt you, Ron, and how did you avoid that?
Do you have any memorable experiences, some lobbyist coming at you, some NGO coming at you, and trying to influence you a certain way, and you just halted them in their tracks?
No, I always felt insulted. They would never come in and see me. So they didn't bother me, and I think that it's one of these things that people expect him to be dishonest. This case about lying to the FBI agent. Well, somebody said, well, they lie to us all the time. What's the difference? It's just the same old thing. They lying to each other. I think what's happened, why this is worse, I think what we're talking about, power corrupting, I think that was there since the beginning of time, in very, very early history, that concept that existed. Now, going there and not being corrupted, I never thought a whole lot about that. I just knew what I believed in and what I said I was going to do and what promises I made. But I do believe that some people have a more firm grip on something I call, the higher laws, the morality of natural law, and that is just you shouldn't lie, cheat, kill, murder people. I mean, you shouldn't do that. And most people know that, and some people are locked into it, but other people, they're totally cynic, and the longer they're in Washington, the more cynical they are, and the further they drift from a natural law that there should be some decency among people. So what they do then is they accept the fact that, we don't know what is right and wrong, and that's what we're living with today. They're nihilistic, and that is what Marxism is based on, nihilism. Not only do they have trouble finding it, they don't believe it's possible to know right from wrong. Well, I happen to be one that thinks that most people know the difference, and if you don't know the difference, then you end up with what we have now. And this and the political system just breeds this attitude, and then they end up with this whole thing that because if it's considered treasonous, in an empire. Because if the empire is based on this lies and nihilism, the one thing that they cannot stand is truth. That is what that really bothers them. I had to cast a few votes when I was there by myself, and people would come and say, "Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this?" And the people who wanted it, they were so annoyed by it. We want 100%. We don't want anybody dissenting. So truth, when it stands out, is very annoying, and we just don't have enough people there. But we have some. There's more than one and two or three people. It's just that you don't get to hear from them very often. But it's something that's going to be there for a long time. But I think it's a wonderful opportunity for libertarianism right now, because this system is doomed. It can't continue the way it is.
No doubt about it.
It's not doomed if we follow some of the proper rules about how you should treat people. No, we could revive the beliefs that we've had in the past that made the country great.
Let's talk about one of the worst forms of corruption. You touched on it earlier, the monetary system. It's something that you've always been concerned with. It's something you've communicated very clearly on over the years, and of course, the people in power don't want to hear anything about it. But it's hard to say "I told you so," but certainly, if anybody can say they told you so, it's Dr. Ron Paul. I mean, you've been consistent on this message. You mentioned gold backing to the dollar being stripped away in the past, and just watching as inflation has just absolutely decimated people's savings and their spending power. And now you've had 10 more years of it since your campaign. Any just thoughts on how things are going with the dollar and alternatives like gold, perhaps? I know you are I believe you are a brand ambassador for the Birch Gold Group. Is that right?
That is correct, and it fits in quite well, because I do think that gold is one of the things that you can protect yourself from when the conditions are bad. And the conditions are bad. We don't have sound money, and that is exactly what I've been doing, from the very beginning, even before 1971, before 1975, we weren't even allowed to own gold in this country. That's how strange and terrible it was. So companies like Birch can provide this, some help and actually advice on how to handle it, because there's different ways to invest in gold and protect it. Everybody has a different idea, and they should, on how you plan for your survival. Some people just think you should move to New Hampshire and everything will be okay. Yeah,
well, not everything, but
but
it's a good step.
Moving to New Hampshire and having gold and cryptocurrency, that's
right.
a good plan.
Right.
Dr. Paul, you mentioned earlier, that one shouldn't lie, cheat, steal, or kill, and I love pointing out these are things we learn in kindergarten, right? Don't hit people, don't take their stuff, be honest. But somewhere along the way, from rising from kindergarten to adulthood, the average person seems to forget those rules, and they become okay with massive amounts of lying, stealing, and killing when it's orchestrated by the government. As far as I can tell, libertarianism is just the idea that we have to remind these people that they should behave as well as kindergartners. Do you have a...
Yeah, and I think you're touching on something that I think is true, is that when the government becomes nihilistic, they don't believe in truth, they don't believe in the conditions that you've just described, that the people themselves, they learn from that. Then if you look at government schools contribute a lot, to this too. And And so there is an atmosphere now of competition. There's still a lot of people in this country. Matter of fact, I think the majority of the American people are still, if you ask them, do you think you have a right to take a car from your neighbor because they have two and you don't have any? Most Americans are going to say, no, that isn't the case. But, I think the rule that I keep telling myself about and telling people to look at is Bastiat's rule, in the law. And the rule is that if you and I can't do it, and the governments are always telling us you can't do this, and you shouldn't steal, or we're going to put you in jail, and don't lie to the FBI, or all this stuff. But they don't apply it to themselves. So the government, and this creates a havoc. It destroys liberty for everybody. It destroys the economy, and the dishonesty in the monetary system is destined to make a lot of people poorer. I've always argued the case that if you live beyond your means as an individual or as a country, you must live beneath your means after you want to achieve the recovery. And now it's just being recognized that those rules are coming about because people are starting to live beneath their means. And believe me, I think if you're looking at how much cleansing of this mess we have, I would say we're 10% into the correction, and that means that we as libertarians have a big message. I think having a radio show like you have and getting a message out is one of the most important things you do. You say, well, we know how many listeners we have. No, you don't know how many people you have that you've influenced. I'm surprised, that every once in a while I've been to people that, I talked to them during the Libertarian campaign of 1988, and they say, oh, you influenced me back there. It's out there. I see the whole mess that we're talking about, whether it's a monetary issue or morality. It depends on people following the rules and understanding and the importance of liberty.
Ron, Paul, stand by. We're going to continue here in just a moment. This is Free Talk Live. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeen.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeen.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and we have Dr. Ron Paul on at the air with us here, and he has been so gracious as to spend the entire hour of the show here, the first hour, with us. If you want to get on the air, then stand by. We will get back to our normal format, which is open phones every single night of the year, pretty much over here at freetalklive.com. That's where you can go learn more about us. By the way, coming up here in just a few weeks, ForkFest is happening in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. It's June 27th through July 3rd. It's the week after the Porcupine Freedom Festival. It is a great excuse to come on up and check out New Hampshire, where you can be with thousands of like-minded, freedom-loving people all year round. ForkFest is a great excuse to come spend Independence Day with like-minded folks. So go to forkfest.party to learn more about that. Again, June 27th through July 3rd. There are no tickets. It's a decentralized camping event. You get your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground July 27th through July 3rd. Go to forkfest.party to learn more. Dr. Ron Paul is back here with us. Ron, thanks for staying with us this whole hour. I appreciate it.
Sure thing.
So let's see. I had another question for you here. We've talked a little bit about monetary corruption, which, of course, getting out of the dollar is an important solution. You mentioned you think we're only 10% into what could be this ongoing correction that's going on, and that means that things are going to get 90% worse. so definitely beware of that.
Well,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, please. If you had more to say. On that.
Well, the disparity in length will depend on, what government does. But
sure.
The betting I'm making is that the government will not make things better very soon. They're going to make things much worse because they were unhappy a couple of years ago, and they put in a new president, and he hasn't helped us a whole lot so far. Mm-mm. So the hole is much deeper than it was. So if you look at the amount of debt and the amount of malinvestment that has existed, and the amount of regulations that have been written to reverse that, to get people back in a productive arena, that's a big job. And right now, it's very, very difficult because there's a lot of money out there that has not been used for productive efforts. The money has actually made a few number of people, mainly on the very wealthy side, much richer. Mm-hmm. But the middle class pays the bills, and the poor get poorer. And there's a lot of way to go because there's so much debt. People don't talk a whole lot about the debt. The conservatives do once in a while, but they don't do anything about it. They when you look at Schumer and McConnell, they're pretty good friends, and
sure.
Yep. They don't really have two different philosophies. There are some differences. You can't say there aren't any, but basically on the big stuff, whether it's monetizing debt, whether it's the warmongering going on, whether it's the taxation that they have to do either directly or indirectly because inflation is a tax, and that's the way you pay your bills. And we get rid of the debt. We have to liquidate the debt. There's only two ways you can do it: work harder and pay it off, like an individual might have to. But governments never do that. They pay it off by just printing more money. And if they owe $100, they'll get you $100, but it's only worth 10. So there's a lot of that, and you don't know how long it's going to last or how it will react. But I'm not very optimistic about working our way out of it. I'm more optimistic on what's happening in the libertarian movement and reaching out to people. And I think the ideas have consequences. And I spoke to a lot of college kids, during the 2 presidential elections, and everybody said, well, they're lost causes. But the ones I met really weren't. I was very pleased. Even though the people who are making the noise, the people who are demonstrating, they're not going to be libertarians. But besides, it's not a numbers game. It's just getting the right kind of people in the right places so that the libertarian message people are in a position where they can spread a message, like having a good radio program.
Well, thank you for that, Ron.
That's what really counts.
I agree with that. Communication is very important. We've been doing it for 2 decades now here on Free Talk Live. We're on over 190 radio stations across the week. But I wanted to actually ask you about beyond because we know the individual can do things to prepare for what is happening and what is coming. You are a big advocate of gold, precious metals, with the Birch Gold Group. And we love cryptocurrency. We love gold and silver here on Free Talk Live.
I wanted to ask if he had heard about the gold back.
We could get into that, but I want to get into something more specific about solutions for people. Because I agree with you, the federal government isn't going to go in a more pro-freedom direction. We're seeing a lot of talk nationwide, and especially in the last year or so, about a national divorce, about people going their separate ways. We're actually seeing people migrating right now, especially after all the COVID regulations and crackdowns. We're seeing people, maybe conservatives are leaving California and New York and moving to Florida and Texas. We're seeing people that want to be in more liberal places move into the West Coast. We're seeing libertarians migrating to New Hampshire as part of the Free State Project. You've endorsed the Free State Project in the past. That is definitely, I've seen video clips of it. I think you spoke a long time ago at the Free State Project event back in 2008 or 2009, the Liberty Forum, to a huge crowd. And just to give you a quick update, because I don't know how much you pay attention, there are now approximately 40 state representatives here in New Hampshire that are free staters, Ron, and that's about 10%, because we've got a 400-person state house here, which is the largest in the country, as you probably know. So we got about 10% already, and it's pretty early on. This year we had a historic occasion where there was actually a constitutional amendment proposed to let the people of New Hampshire vote on declaring peaceful independence from the United States. And I just want to hear your thoughts on peaceful secession.
Well, this is all good news, and this is where the fight should be. Sure, we should have a haven. We should have a place to go. We should have, gold and silver. We should be able to take care of ourselves. We should know where our friends are. We should have a way of defending our family financially and physically. But ultimately, I'll talk to a lot of investment groups, and they're interested in investment, how I'm going to build my portfolio and spend their time doing that. And I said, that's all right and good, and you should. And the more the merrier, the more the people are protected, the better off we are. But really, the investment of time and energy and what you really have to invest in is the cause of liberty, because a lot of people still are a little bit confused. I get encouraged from something Leonard Reed taught me many years ago. He says, don't sweat this thing about, we still don't have 51% of the people so that we can control the elections and that stuff. Well, I don't even think about that anymore. I think about people in leadership positions, and now, there are some people on radio and the different talk shows, and I was very optimistic when the internet came out. Then I sort of thought, holy man, that looks like they're going to be able to control that. But right now, you were announcing that you have a vehicle that you can get around with the corruption and the social media. So I think technology, I always thought the libertarians would lead the charge of overcoming the technology that the government is going to want to control. So that to me is good news. But it's the ideas that make all the difference in the world, and that to me is the most important investment that all of us make, even though we should do all the other things, but buying gold and having land if you can. Some people will have a haven in South America and all that, and that's up to the individual, just the individuals to do it. Besides, New Hampshire's a lot closer than South America.
Oh, yeah.
That's true. Do you think secession's inevitable?
Secession, no, I don't think it is. I think Well, it depends on how you describe it. If you want to, if you're thinking that that there's total breakdown and total chaos, that's a form of secession because people have been neutralized. But to go through formal secession and get people to vote for it, I don't think that's going to happen. But I think you've indicated that people have already taken advantage of the laws and the rights that we still have because people are moving. That's the best vote you can cast.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I don't think you're going to, at least in the near future, we're not going to see it eventually. I guess the country will break up because all empires end, and that's why it occurs when the country gets so big they get overextended overseas and they run up the deficits too far at home, and the welfare state and the special interest groups finally get overburdened and the people do rebel. And then who knows what will come of it. Mm-hmm. And I keep thinking what we need are as many people as possible when that time comes, because I do not believe we'll prevent it from coming. It'll be total chaos, so you want to know where your friends are. And then that's when you have to start the rebuilding and have a better system. But that could come in a couple months, or it could come in a couple decades.
Yeah, you never know.
That is not known.
I really like the way you look at it, though, where that you can invest in gold and silver and cryptocurrency and all this, but the best investment that one can make is in the ideas of liberty.
And to have a community that you can count on that's there physically nearby you, which, of course, the Free State Project is unmatched in that area. Dr. Paul, thank you so much for spending this whole hour with us here tonight, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. And again, check out Ron Paul's Liberty Report. It's almost every single day. I think it's every weekday.
Yes, it is, and the YouTube channel is on there, but the website too, Ron Paul Liberty.
Ron Paul Liberty Report. Thanks, Ron. We'll talk
All
to
right,
you
well,
soon.
thank you. Nice to be with you.
Yep. We're coming. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. Russian forces are reported to have struck a tank containing nitric acid in the eastern Ukrainian city of Severo, Donetsk. It's now ground zero in the Kremlin's efforts to annex the Donbass. In light of the blast at the Azot chemical works, members of the public are being advised to remain in shelters and to wear masks. EU leaders have reached agreement to ban 90% of Russian oil from the bloc, but Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban secured a carve-out that will allow some pipeline imports to continue. Naomi O'Leary is Brussels correspondent for the Irish Times.
The initial proposal was for all Russian oil, and this tweak was necessary to win the consensus, particularly to win over Hungary, which relies on that pipeline oil. So it means that the ban will cover 2/3 of all Russian oil imports, because 2/3 of Russian oil imports come by sea. The carve out for Hungary in particular, we will see. It's a big open question. How long will this last? Will it have any knock-on effects? Surprising things such as, I don't know, could Hungary try and sell on this oil, or could there be some sort of skullduggery? These are the details that are going to be worked out by diplomats in the coming days.
In other news, one woman was killed and 2 people injured in a shooting today outside a high school graduation in New Orleans. Police say a fight broke out between 2 women outside the university complex where the graduation was taking place. President Biden says he will meet with Republicans in Congress to discuss limited gun control proposals that are being debated on Capitol Hill. Meanwhile, the first funerals of the 19 children and 2 teachers killed 1 week ago at the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde have taken place. A jury has acquitted a former lawyer for Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign of charges that he lied to the FBI about Donald Trump's ties to Russia. FSN's U.S. correspondent Ara Spitzer reports.
A prosecutor originally appointed by the Trump administration had accused Michael Sussman of trying to illegally damage the Trump campaign by bringing up suspicions about a possible link between the campaign and the Kremlin-linked Alpha Bank to the FBI. The case centered on whether Sussman was acting on behalf of the Clinton campaign by bringing up the allegations, which were quickly dismissed. The verdict is a setback for Trump and his supporters, who have long alleged a conspiracy to damage his campaign by fabricating links between the former president and Moscow. Russia interfered in the 2016 election in favor of Trump in various ways, including through hacking, claims that Moscow denies.
The actor Kevin Spacey says that he will travel to the UK to face sexual assault charges. Last week, the Crown Prosecution Service authorised criminal charges to be brought against the actor. He says that he is determined to travel in order to prove his innocence. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, a battlefield update from eastern Ukraine, where the Russians have been making substantial progress over the last week, advancing President Putin's aim of annexing the region and putting it under Russian control. Fierce fighting has been continuing, particularly around the city of Severo Donetsk, so fierce that over the weekend, Ukrainian commanders warned that their forces might have to withdraw. Russian forces have been pushed back from Kiev and the second largest city of Kharkiv, so the Kremlin's focus on eastern Ukraine is now intensifying. And reporter Liz Cookman in Dnipro says civilians are paying the price.
Basically, Russia now occupies 95% of the Luhansk region, and they're trying to take the last 2 cities. Many of the people left behind are actually elderly or disabled. They're people who don't have the mobility or the money to leave to go elsewhere. And so it's very difficult. There are a lot of missions to try and evacuate people. Often a lot of it falls on the shoulders of individuals, although some NGOs are trying to help. But many of the people coming out, some of them are being able to flee, but they've spent months in basements. They're already many of them fairly old. It's been very, very traumatic for them.
And on Monday, a 32-year-old French reporter with the BFM TV network died after sustaining a shrapnel wound while attempting to cover those evacuation efforts. The main news again, Russian forces are reported to have struck a tank containing nitric acid in the eastern Ukrainian city of Severo Donetsk, with residents being advised to remain in shelters as the chemicals disperse. 1 woman was killed and 2 people injured in a shooting today outside a high school graduation in New Orleans. And a jury has acquitted a former lawyer for Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign of charges that he lied to the FBI about Donald Trump's ties to Russia. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
It's being called the must-have tech gadget of the year. The Samsung Apex, which hits shelves today, streams video into your left eye, internet into your right eye, and sucks your dick all at the same time. Samsung spokesman Neil Werner is projecting the biggest sales in his company's history.
Are you kidding me? This thing does everything, plus it sucks your dick, all right? And I know what you're thinking. And yes, ladies, there is a version for you that eats you out. Hanging up Apple, we beat you the punch on this one. Samsung's got you by the balls.
In spite of the almost $1,000 price tag, customers are raving about the device.
For my career, I do need the internet and TV and my dick sucked all the time.
I already have a TV and a girlfriend and a laptop, but to have all those in one device would be really nice.
Even a run of bad press about unsafe working conditions in the Apex factory in India have not dampened sales projections.
Yeah. Factory, switch up, blah, blah. How about you just plug your eyeball straight into the internet and get your dick sucked?
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live. It is Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, you've got Ian.
Aria.
And Conan.
What a pleasure to get to speak once again with Dr. Ron Paul. I wish there was so much more that we could have talked about with him, and it always...
I know. I spent most of the most of the hour trying not to be like, dude, thank you. You're the reason I got into liberty, doing this whole
You should have said that. I mean, it's always nice to hear.
I'm sure he hears it all the time, and I didn't just want to, fangirl all over the guy, right?
I can still remember watching those presidential campaign debates.
Man,
and
the Republican ones where he was just ripping these people apart.
Yeah,
and he was getting applause and ovations every single rip. And I'm like, how the hell? And the other guy's Greenwich or whatever his name is. Can't even remember his name anymore. It's been so long.
Oh, Newt Gingrich.
Newt, yeah.
Okay.
Well, there was also Rick Santorum and Rick Perry and all of these other guys. These well put together politicians. Ron Paul was like 70 years old at the time, just eviscerating them on the stage, getting standing ovations for his answer.
And I'm like, how is this guy not getting the points?
Well, the media stole it from him.
Exactly. I mean, why is he never mentioned on any of these Fox polling debates?
The only time I ever saw him mentioned was when Jon Stewart brought him up to call out Fox News after the Iowa caucus in 2012 or whenever it was, where Fox News, they mentioned the person who came in first, the person who came in second, and then they mentioned the person who came in fourth, fifth,
they
and
skipped
sixth. They deliberately skipped over number 3, and Jon Stewart sitting there. Jon Stewart, of all people, behind who? Who did John Kerry or whoever it was? Not John Kerry.
Doesn't matter who
John
they were.
Hunt was the guy who came in for.
Bunch of rhinos.
And it was just
forgettables, a bunch of forgettables.
And then he did even better in New Hampshire, and they couldn't ignore him at that point. But by then, all of the momentum, the defeatism among libertarians had started to, because there's a lot of defeatism. Oh, I would vote for him, but he can't win. And that was when that really started to come into play around South Carolina. And then hope just sort of fizzled out. And the Republicans retired him that year at their Republican National Convention. But I mean,
he's back to libertarian now. He did switch to Republican to actually campaign in that race.
Well, he was a Republican, wasn't he? He was all of his political career.
He was a libertarian in the 80s, 90s.
Yeah, he ran as a libertarian in 1988 for president. Are you saying he's rejoined the Libertarian Party, Conan?
According to Wiki, he's been a libertarian since 2015.
Wow, I did not realize that.
Yeah. Well, if you buy a lifetime, Bill Weld has been one since 2012 as well, right? I mean, if you buy a lifetime membership, they never rescind that. But in my opinion, Ron Paul has always been a libertarian.
Absolutely.
You're saying as far as political party.
Correct.
That's interesting. He did speak over the weekend at the Libertarian Party National Convention, although he technically spoke at the Mises Party, the Mises Caucus segment. They had like their own speaking area where they had guest speakers, and Ron Paul spoke to a huge crowd of folks there. There were some nice comments, of course, that came in. JDT 2003 said Ron Paul and Harry Brown turned millions onto the idea of individual liberty, and he said that on our YouTube channel.
Yep. Way before my time.
Ron Paul even mentioned that, giving speeches to college students and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, I was one of those college students. Yeah. I mean, he never spoke at my university, but I was around college age, and just all of these boring politicians coming along. This was right after Obama had just turned us from young, idealistic, hopeful young people into just bitter, jaded husks of human beings who were like, oh, okay, they're all liars, they're all crooks. Obama didn't shut down Gitmo. He didn't create any level of peace. He continued the wars. And then here comes Ron Paul, and he says the same peaceful ideas, and he paints a picture of a world that we want, and it sounds great, and he's got all of these ideas behind it and how we can get there. And then goes, oh, by the way, there's decades of me, keeping my word here and actually fulfilling my promises and standing by these principles, and that was what hooked everyone.
My favorite part was when he answered your question, Conan, to say that they never even tried.
Yeah, I seem to remember he actually had a sign on his desk which had said something to the effect, "All lobbyists who want something from me, please go away."
I thought it was "Don't steal. The government hates competition."
He had that on his mug or something. He had that.
I thought he had that on his desk.
Yeah, it was on his desk. But
they figured it out real quick that this guy is not going to work with us.
He's got the right vibes, you know. He's got positive vibrations that he's sending out there. He's incorruptible, and so they didn't even try it with him, which is amazing.
Now, part of my question to him was rhetorical on my part. I kind of know the answer myself, which is why I have never felt. I've run for office here in the local elections, and I have not felt good about it at all because I don't want to make decisions on other human beings' behalf. It makes me feel yucky.
Yeah,
but
ugly.
But chicken or egg? Is it the position that corrupts, or is it the position that attracts corrupt individuals, or is it both?
It's both. It attracts the corrupt, obviously.
Right.
But then for the innocent person that's not per se corrupt going into it, it will corrupt them.
I'm not so sure. I think that because he is the obvious example that proves otherwise.
Well,
He's stuck to his ideals all the time, all throughout those years.
Yeah, but that's so rare.
It's rare.
He is the one example that I always point to because he is the one example that I can always point to. Everyone else, like Justin Amash, they all had these times where they don't stand by their principles.
We've seen it happen here in New Hampshire.
Oh yeah. And I've always been suspicious that no. Those were bad eggs from the get-go. They were bad eggs from the get-go, and it just came out over time.
Yeah. We actually read a story, I don't have it in front of me, Conan, but some number of years ago on Free Talk Live, there was a story about scientific studies that they have done on people to show that power corrupts.
Yes, Stanford prison experiment.
That's one of them.
If you believe it. I've questioned that experiment and the validity of that.
That's not the only one. There have been a myriad of experiments dealing with this. Again, I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but it's a fascinating topic, and the evidence points to the fact that people are corruptible. Now, that's not to say there aren't really unusual characters that can somehow resist that.
Right,
and but they're very, very unusual.
I think
they're all more than just Ron Paul, though. I mean, we have them here in New Hampshire, like Mike Sylvia, Matt Santana-Stosso, and a number of state reps who got into power as state representatives. Maybe not as much power as a U.S. representative, but still a significant amount of power, and yet they stay true to their principles as well.
They do, and the majority of them are pretty. I think would stay pretty true. But there's been a lot of quibbling over the so-called liberty reps here in New Hampshire, and why don't they go further? And a lot of them are playing this game, and whether you want to call that corruption or them just playing the game.
Well, they want to keep the power, so that's corruption as far as I can tell.
There's an argument for that, yeah. And so, like, why haven't any of the liberty reps who I'm not saying I don't appreciate them, because I do appreciate them, and I know it's not easy being there, and they got to some extent, they feel like they got to play this game. They've got so-called political capital, and they can only spend so much of it. But how come we don't have a bill that's going to end the entire war on drugs?
Yeah.
Why don't we have a bill that's going to wipe out the entire Department of Safety?
Well, we tried with a secession bill. That was a new thing.
Yeah, but
I don't know that I've ever seen anything like that in my lifetime.
No, that was something special.
I think what Ian is alluding to, though, is that there were numerous marijuana decriminalization bills in the House this year, and one for psilocybin cubensis and a few others. Why did they stop there? Why did they just say, we're going to decriminalize pot? I mean, if you're going to go for it, go all the way. Just say, okay, we're going to end the drug war.
Yeah, why not?
No one proposed that, and that's a good question. Why didn't they?
And if you asked them, they would say political capital. That would be that's the standard political answer.
I would assume it was like, well, we actually have a chance of passing marijuana.
That's what they mean by that. That's the political code for we couldn't pass it, so I don't want to waste my quote-unquote political capital. And that means that they feel like they only have a certain amount that they can do. They can only put forward something that goes a certain distance because they don't want to ruin their reputation with the other state reps in there and go crazy and propose ending the war on drugs.
I don't want a good reputation among a house of thieves and liars.
I'm with you. I would vote for you if you were running for state rep. Speaking of that, the filing period opens tomorrow.
Okay.
Did you ever change your?
I didn't. I thought about it today, but I ended up doing something else. I was like, I don't really want to invest the time and energy to run for office right now anyway. So I may just end up running as a Republican. What does it matter? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
None of this matters.
It's just a way to troll the system. The number here, at least in Keene, we don't have a chance. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Phones are open. We go to your calls and thoughts. And then coming up, Conan wants to talk about eating bugs. It's Free Talk Live. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com. This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a non-profit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we fight for those whose most basic rights are denied by the government. Visit our website today at ij.org.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can join us here at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Free Talk Live is brought to you by Bitcoin.com. If you're ready to start learning about cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, then get on over to Bitcoin.com, and they can help you there. Just click Get Started at the top of the page. By the way, Bitcoin jumped up a little bit in the last 24 hours or so. It's now over $31,000. Had been below 30.
It was at 29 for like 3 weeks.
Couple weeks, yeah.
Well, yeah, it seems that it's going to continue hovering around the $30,000 mark until something changes.
Things change every day.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what that will be? But I mean, some large catalyst, right?
I don't know.
Because it's gone down, it's gone back up, it's gone back down, it's gone back up. And
that's what it does.
I know, but it's been hovering around the $30,000 mark, just like it hovered around the $8,000 to $10,000 mark a few years ago. Like 30,000 is the new 8,000, I guess is what I'm saying.
All right. Well, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's interesting to watch it. You can go to Bitcoin.com, click Get Started at the top of the page. I don't make predictions about what it's going to do. I don't think anybody knows what the future holds, but over time it has tended to go up. If you zoom out, right? Because it's easy to look at the last week or the last day or the last month. Zoom out and look at the last 13 years. And then you'll get a better picture of what the potential is for Bitcoin and the other ones, all the other alternatives out there like Bitcoin Cash, and there's so many different cryptocurrencies. Got to learn the basics, though, before you jump in. Go to Bitcoin.com, click Get Started at the top of the page. Sam is on the line in Ohio. Sam, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on libertarianism in terms of the fact of, I know you always talk about how you don't really care for the Libertarian Party, but at the same time, like, what?
I like the Libertarian Party. It's fun to point and laugh at as the dumpster fire that it is rages in the distance. And I like that it exists. I'm grateful that it exists because it gives something for all of those argumentative people who just want to argue about the tiny little details about things and don't want to actually work toward liberty. While calling themselves libertarians, it gives them somewhere where they can focus their efforts, while we over here in New Hampshire, who want to actually build something and create more freedom, get to focus on what we're doing without all of that infighting and that garbage that they're all about.
But the reason why I brought that up is because, honestly, I wouldn't have found out about those ideas without hearing about that party, the Gary Johnson year election.
So you're somebody who got brought in to Liberty by Gary Johnson. I have to wonder, what was your process like? You found Gary Johnson, you found the Libertarian Party, and then you actually learned about the principles? Because he sure as hell didn't have them.
Yeah, the way I learned about the principles is actually a show that you guys advertise on. You ever heard of The Survival Podcast?
Sure, yeah. Jack Spirko?
Yeah, that was where I heard about you guys, and he talks about the principles of it. And I learned that from him and discovered your show and started listening to this.
Well, this backs up what our co-host Nobody has been saying about the Libertarian Party. He's never been concerned with the fact that they have less than principled candidates like Gary Johnson running for office. And that's, for me, always been a concern of mine. Is I want them to have a principled candidate. That way people can actually hear the principles up front. But nobody argues that, well, as long as you can get people through the front door, then they'll learn about the principles later on. And it looks like Sam is one of those people. So I've never doubted that those people do exist. The question is it better to have the principles right up front? And I think that it is. I think you're going to get the right kind of people right up front. You're not going to turn away those people who might not resonate with Gary Johnson's unprincipled message. What do you think about that, Sam?
I don't really remember much about him other than he had an L next to his name because, honestly, he didn't have a chance like what you were saying.
So he was that forgettable, but yet he brought you into the party. You don't remember much about him, but he was your doorway in. That's fascinating.
Yes.
That is because, man, I've read Ron Paul's books. I don't know how long he had been in office. I don't know his autobiography or whatever, but I know a lot about his positions and the things that he stands for.
The only thing I remember about Johnson is what's Aleppo? and that's it.
Sticking his tongue out.
There was that faux pas. You're right.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
Yeah, that is really interesting because, I've described myself as a Harry Brown libertarian. That was the political presidential candidate they had in the year 1996 and 2000. he was the one that brought me into the movement, and he had some fantastic books. He wrote the famous book, How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World, The Great Libertarian Offer, Why Government Doesn't Work. Why Government Doesn't Work was the first book I ever read about libertarianism, and it totally sold me and brought me into it. It was, I mean, that guy's had a huge influence over me, and I used to listen to him all the time. I've read a ton of his articles that he wrote online. Like Harry Brown was the original blogger back in the day. He was blogging during the 2000 campaign, doing daily updates online about what he was doing.
Yeah, that predates WordPress, man.
As a candidate, and he made such an impact. And it's interesting to hear you say that Gary Johnson brought you in, but you don't even remember anything about him. Wow.
Specifically, I remember the guy who introduced me to him, who had the reason why I was so impressed to even learn anything about it is because the guy who told me about it had memorized the Constitution back and forth 4 times.
Good Lord, why?
Wow.
Because he was that much of a libertarian and he was bored.
That's what libertarians do when they don't have real activism to distract them with, like we do here in New Hampshire.
See, and the Libertarian Party is perfect for those types of people.
Yeah.
If what they want to do in their spare time is memorize the Constitution, stay in Reno or California or New Jersey or wherever you people are arguing online about.
And debate policy and debate bylaws.
And leave the building to us.
Yeah. Anything else you want to share tonight about the Libertarians, Sam?
Just that it seems pretty inspiring that you guys are willing to take on the government the way you are.
Well, I mean, it's not that I want to.
Are you referring to the Crypto 6 thing?
It's just that we are willing to put ourselves out there, and when you are willing to do activism that is going to potentially have an impact, then you have to be willing to accept the fact that there may be violent psychopaths calling themselves government that will target you for it. And that was one of the things that I came to grips with when I decided to be an activist. Before I even moved to New Hampshire, I knew that if I put myself out there, that there was a chance that I would be targeted. And it's not because I want that to happen. I really would rather just be left alone. It's just that I know if I do nothing, then things are going to get worse, and I cannot just stand by and do nothing. Huh?
But since you're willing to take that risk, that really impresses me.
Well, good, and I wish more people would. I hope more people will stand up, because that's what it's going to take. We're not going to get to liberty by just voting. You're not going to get to liberty by just running a candidate once every 4 years. We've got to have a community of people who are doing a variety of different activism, both political and outside of the system. And there's nowhere else on the planet that's like that besides New Hampshire. And I mean, Ron Paul's has endorsed the Free State Project, and there's a reason for that. Thank you, Sam, for the call tonight. I appreciate it. Any thoughts on that, guys? The risks?
You're absolutely right, and I knew that when I became an activist as well, and I warned people about becoming activists for exactly that reason. If you stick your neck out and you're effective, you're giving the government a target, and they're going to do what governments do, and that's inflict violence on you.
You could be the first up against the wall. All of us.
And it may not just be the government. It may be angry locals who target you physically. I mean, you've had your car vandalized. We've had this house vandalized. There's more coming up here. It is Free Talk Live.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. Grief-stricken families in Uvalde, Texas are beginning to bury their loved ones a week after a mass shooting at an elementary school left 19 children and 2 teachers dead. The final goodbyes come amid mounting anger over the police response. FSN's Tony Waterman reports from Texas.
5 of the Uvalde victims, including teacher Irma Garcia, were laid to rest on Tuesday, exactly 1 week after they were gunned down in their 4th grade classroom. Funerals will stretch well into June due to the sheer number of victims. But as families say their final farewells, anger is mounting over the police response. In new audio obtained by CNN, a child calling 911 can be heard calling for help, saying they are in a room full of victims, raising questions about why police waited to take down the shooter. Meanwhile, in Washington, lawmakers are racing to reach a deal on gun safety, which would focus on expanded background checks, red flag laws, and possible restrictions on those with a criminal record. It's unclear, though, if the 60 votes needed to support the measures are there in the Senate. Tony Waterman, Texas.
K-pop phenomena BTS have met U.S. President Joe Biden in Washington. On the final day of Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, the superstar group spoke about hate crimes and diversity. FSN's Nick Harper reports from Washington.
BTS have been vocal about racism and spoken out against discrimination. They've donated $1 million to Black Lives Matter and campaigned for the UN's children's fund, UNICEF, to end violence against children. Now they can add to their resume a meeting with the US President Joe Biden to discuss the growing problem of anti-Asian hate crimes and finding ways to increase Asian inclusion. And they welcome the opportunity for the discussion.
And it is a great honor to be invited to the White House today to discuss the important issues of anti-Asian hate crimes, Asian inclusion, and diversity.
I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
U.S. stocks closed out the month on a downbeat note with inflation concerns still weighing on the minds of traders. And the energy sector was once again in focus on the heels of the European Union's decision to ban the majority of Russian oil imports. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
May is a month many investors will be keen to see the back of. Inflation concerns have pulled down US stocks for weeks, with the Nasdaq falling around 2% over the past month. Inflation was again in focus for traders Tuesday. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell has met with Joe Biden, and the US president has vowed that fighting inflation, which is up at 40-year highs, is a top priority. Looking at how the markets closed, the Dow Jones fell 0.7%. The S&P 0.6%, and the Nasdaq 0.4%.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FS.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live, and the phones are open if you want to join us here. It's 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We did have Ron Paul on the show tonight. That, of course, episode will be up on freetalklive.com. Behind the scenes, we are doing some wire switching, if you will. We're going from one podcast host to another. You shouldn't notice any issues. This should be pretty transparent. We're joining the megaphone.fm platform, and we are now actually available there.
You shouldn't notice any issues, though, is like the thing that people say right before people notice issues. Right?
Yeah, I'm just letting
you're absolutely right. There shouldn't be any issues, but somehow, for some reason, someone's going to have an issue.
We'll see. We'll see. I think it'll be pretty seamless. We've switched podcast hosts before, and we are going to continue uploading to SoundCloud for some amount of time just to see what happens. We're kind of doing some experiments with changing things up. So again, you shouldn't notice any difference, but if you go to freetalklive.com, you can always grab the latest episode there. If you want to subscribe to our podcast, you can go to feeds.freetalklive.com. I've updated that today. The feed URL hasn't changed. It's still the same FeedBurner URL that you've always gone through if you subscribe to that. If you've never subscribed to our podcast, then head over to feeds.freetalklive.com and just drop that into your favorite podcast client. I also added links to Google Podcasts and Apple Podcasts and Stitcher and one or two of the other ones, iHeart. So there's some more links on there than there were before. Some people like to listen through those platforms.
Did you throw in Spotify? Because Spotify's extremely popular. Okay.
Yep, it's up there. So check it out over at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's how you can follow us and get your latest episodes of Free Talk Live automatically delivered to you. All right, so we're going to continue with your calls and thoughts. And coming up, we're going to talk about the latest bug pushing.
Oh, God.
Conan's got some
Oh,
bug
I love to hate
news.
these articles. I love to hate them.
And then also World War III, apparently Russian state media is they're announcing World War III is happening.
They're also announcing the end of the war in Ukraine. And it took me a minute to figure out what they were talking about. They were like, this is no longer a special operation in Ukraine. They're not declaring victory in Ukraine, which is what I assumed. They're saying that special operation has ended because it's now expanded into world war.
And that's what we're going to talk about coming up here. But first, Sarah is on the line in New Mexico. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live.
So, one of your hosts quit smoking, right? What was your name? You're on today. Aria? Is that his name?
Did you quit smoking? Are you still taking that Chantrix crap?
No, and I quit smoking.
She's off.
Oh, wow.
No, are you actually listening to the show, Sarah?
Sarah, I'm a trans woman, by the way. That's transphobic of you.
Oh, you're a transformer? What's the difference between a transformer and a transvestite?
I would. Okay, transformer.
That's an interesting question.
Transformer aside, it's a fair question. I would argue that for non-op and pre-op, which I'm not going to get into an explanation of those things, there isn't a difference. No practical or meaningful difference to speak of.
What is a transformer?
I don't know what she
Someone
meant.
who transforms.
But I assume, Sarah, if it helps you to think of me as in terms of a transvestite, that's fine with me. I don't particularly care. I don't think you're transphobic either. That was a joke. That's why everyone here laughed, because they know coming from me that that's not a sincere statement.
Do you think that was good of Aria to quit smoking, or do you think that she should continue to smoke because, I don't know, because
you know what?
four out of every 5 doctors say
that's
that's good to go.
Well, he was complaining about Maryland last time I confronted you about they threw out the smokers in the casinos in the Navajo tribe, and it's part of Arizona and New Mexico. So the Navajo Nation is on those 2 states, and so
yeah, I remember
Jonathan
that.
Okay, and then what you're crying about is like that's the only place I got left to smoke. I mean, you were kind of sulky about it. You were kind of whining about. I mean, if I don't smoke in the casino, where else am I going to smoke?
Hold on, Sarah,
right?
Because your understanding of how you called into a national radio show to complain about this one place where smokers can still smoke inside. This one place, and you whined to us about that. And when I put it, and I wasn't even a smoker then when we had this discussion. I'm pretty sure I said it back then. That is one of the few places in the United States where a smoker can actually be inside, enjoying themselves, engaging in some form of entertainment, and light up a cigarette. And even though you don't even gamble, you don't go to the casinos, you want to take that away from them. You're the Karen here, Sarah, not me. You don't know what that means.
I was telling you. Well, the thing about it is that, okay, when I called and wrote a letter to the casino, okay, it's close to the city.
Have you ever gone to this casino? Hold on. Have you ever gone to this casino?
Well, I visited all of the casinos around here. There's about, 6 different kinds, every which way, north, south, the south, east, west, every which way. There's casinos everywhere.
Do you spend money at this casino?
Well, no,
Then what do you care what policies they have about smokers? You don't go to this place. You're not one of their customers.
Wait, I thought she did go and get her hair done or something. Didn't you go to the spa?
They have buffets. I mean, the thing is, it's entertaining for non-gamblers because they give you free water, free soda pop.
But you've never spent money.
Things to eat.
But you've never spent money at one of these places.
Well, what difference does it make?
Wait, because you're not a customer.
Right?
Hold on.
Wait, you're complaining about the rest.
Welcome to Sarah, man.
You can go to a casino and eat for free. I mean, I've heard that they give their high rollers, freebies.
I'm just saying that they have really great buffets during Thanksgiving, Christmas.
Don't you have to pay for that?
No, I do pay, but the drinks
so you are a customer.
Soda pop.
You're a customer.
Yes, I am a customer.
Well, then why did you say no to that question repeatedly? Okay, so you have spent money at these places.
Well, I'm not a customer as far as you were talking about making money off me gambling. No, I do not play any of the slots and the tables. Any of it.
I didn't ask if you gambled.
They do not make money.
I said, do you spend money at this place?
Look, as a non-smoker, I'm entitled to enjoy the casino because they got golf courses, they got swimming pools, they have salons, they got spas, they got jacuzzis, they got all of these things. I'm entitled. They welcome
Entitled?
me.
Wow. To
Sarah,
someone else's private property.
Sarah, you can do all of those things at countless other venues.
Sarah, this isn't a public arena. This is someone's private business.
She's a commie.
You aren't entitled to any part of that. If you don't like the rules, go to another casino.
Well, all of the casinos got about the same kind of rules.
Yeah, because they know their customers are the ones most likely to get addicted to things like alcohol and tobacco and gambling. There's a reason that they allow smoking and drinking in casinos, Sarah, and it's because they're all addictive, just like gambling. By not allowing them to have smokers, you're basically saying, don't smoke, don't drink in the casinos. You're killing their entire market. That's what they do. They sell addiction to people. That's not your issue, though. Your issue is that you might breathe in some secondhand smoke at one of these places. You're a lunatic, Sarah.
Well, why do they want my business when 5 people out of 6 people are non-smokers? Okay,
because you're not one of the ones prone to. I just explained why you're not one of the ones prone to addiction.
Sarah, if there were enough people who didn't want smoking at the casino, you would have a non-smoking casino.
Yep, or it would have gone out of business a long time ago.
And that's what we have.
But they do have more people.
Hold on, wait. There is a non-smoking casino?
I was telling you, it happened about 6 months ago. The whole Navajo Nation, which is part of Arizona and into New Mexico, they banned smoking from all public.
Well, then why don't you go there?
Well, I'm just trying to tell you that I'm so happy. I've been calling about that. I've been going there, and I helped Aria, the Transformer, to quit.
You
did not
Aria.
help me quit.
It's all her. She's taking all the credit.
Aria, the Transformer, denies that you had any role in my quitting of smoking.
Thanks for the call, Sarah. All right, that's enough from you.
But Sarah, I mean, that's what these places do. It doesn't matter that non-smokers outnumber smokers. They cater to people who are most likely to get addicted. They know that the people that's sitting at those slot machines are the old people who can't afford to give away their pensions. They cater to that market. That's why they want smokers. That's why they want drinkers.
If you want to join us here, you can do that. 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Pork Fest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. Forkfest.party.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Fact. The new NSA data center in Utah requires 1.7 million gallons of water every single day to operate. Billions of Fourth Amendment violations need massive computers and the water to cool them. That water is being supplied by the state of Utah. Fact: there's absolutely nothing in the Constitution which requires your state to help the feds violate your rights. Our message to Utah: turn it off. No water equals no NSA data center. Visit offnow.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Is it World War III? Well, apparently, the Russians might be saying so. Now, in the studio tonight, you've got Ian.
Aria.
And Conan.
I do want to say thanks to Damon Freeman, who is a Free Talk Live supporter. He is supporting our AMPS Patreon, which you can join over at amps.freetalklive.com. It stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. Damon's diamond level, which means he's doing way more than what we ask. We only ask for $5 a month. He's doing quite a bit more. So thank you, Damon, for helping us out with that over there. And you can join him over at amps.freetalklive.com and get some cool benefits for joining that as well. We really appreciate it. That's amps.freetalklive.com. We're going to go to the phones here. I think, is this Steven in Georgia?
How are you guys?
You're on the air. Go ahead, sir.
Hey, so first and foremost, if she's still listening, Sarah, I literally have an envelope full of money to send you to a commune. If whenever you're ready being unhappy, whenever like you want to stop being unhappy, just fill out the application. I'll pay for the application fee, and I'll pay for you to go to the commune, and you go be a communist. And leave us alone.
If Bernie Sanders is any evidence of how communists think about other communists, she wouldn't last 12 hours. They would kick her butt out
because she's lazy.
Because she's lazy and wouldn't work. Just like they kicked Bernie Sanders out after 2 weeks because he was the same way. Unless you're talking about like when I say commune, I mean like a farm out in
a real commune
in Vermont or somewhere, even in New Hampshire.
You got to work the land.
But if you're talking about like China. Or North Korea, yeah. We can all pitch in and get a plane ticket for Sarah.
I'll send her to any of these places if she will go. If she will agree, yes, this is what I think is communism, and she will go there. I will happily pay.
Weren't you the person who made that offer before and she turned it down?
Yeah, because her life's mission is to.
Go ahead, Steve.
I still have the money sitting aside so that she can go be happy because she just seems miserable.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but my biggest issue with the Free State is like y'all are like me politically, but not spiritually. So I would rather be here with a church full of people that believe like me. And I feel like the best thing for Sarah is to go be with a bunch of communists. I'm a Baptist.
Are there Baptist churches up here?
I don't know if there are Baptist churches, but I would easily recommend the church that you and I attended like 2-ish years ago. Ian, it had
Hope Chapel.
It has a very Southern Baptist feel to it, and the pastor there, he speaks with the passion that you expect of a Southern Baptist pastor, not one of these dull prattling on.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So you understand what SBC culture is like? And
Yeah,
you think
absolutely.
That's pretty close.
I would say that Hope Chapel, and that's the only church I've been to in New Hampshire, but I can't imagine they're all like that. The pastor there is very libertarian leaning, or he may in fact be a free stater, I don't know. But the energy that he brought to the sermon was very similar, maybe not as high key as what you find at the Southern Baptist Church. There was more love and compassion and less fire and brimstone, but it still had the same sort of passion behind it.
It was the most libertarian sermon I had heard in my lifetime. Absolutely excellent. We got video of it. If you want to check it out, you can go to freekeen.com, search for Hope Chapel.
There you go.
But actually, there's a Baptist church here in Keene, so it sounds to me like you haven't done any research.
That doesn't mean Southern Baptist, though.
Okay, but that said, I didn't expect to see that. I mean, I'll be fair to you, though. I mean, New Hampshire is known as being one of the least churched states as far as there are religious people here, but not as many of them per capita go to a church. So there aren't as many churches per capita in New Hampshire, as I understand it. But they still exist. I mean, they're definitely still here.
I don't know what it's like there in Georgia, but I know in Mississippi, like every mile you were passing a church. And most of these would have like a congregation of like 12 to 13 people or something like that. And then you'd drive another mile and look, oh, here's another church. Or you'd pass a corner. Oh, look, there's churches on both sides.
Yeah, I definitely stay away from this First Baptist. They've got a COVID-19 notice right on their front page saying they're having in-person, socially distanced services on Sundays. So yeah, if you're a libertarian-minded person, you just talk to the Free Staters, and they will point you to the most freedom-friendly churches that are around, and they do exist. And the whole point to the sermon that you and I attended are, and you're a Satanist. Yeah. I'm a panentheist, so we're not with this church per se, but we went because they were actually having a outdoor service, which was against the rules. So they were actually committing civil disobedience at the time that this happened, and so we wanted to go and support them. And it wasn't socially distanced; people were close and hugging and shaking hands, and it was absolutely fantastic. And
it was very good. They had live music, respectable live music. I mean, it was not bad at all. And then
you're a musician, so
yeah. And then the preacher came out, he did his thing, and there was no part of it where I was like, bored and wishing that we were sitting out in the sun. So I mean, I was hot and miserable through parts of it because it was high noon or whatever. Yeah. But there was no point where I was like, oh, this is so boring. I wish I had not come here or whatever. Like I was throughout all of my experiences in church previously.
Mm-hmm. The one church that I see a lot around here are the Unitarianisms. The Unitarians.
Those are the liberals.
Yeah, and keep that in mind.
Yeah. Yep.
What is a Unitarian church?
I'm looking at the wiki right now, trying to figure it out, and I know they're liberals. Mm-hmm. But only thing I can figure out is that they don't believe in original sin.
Is this like the Next Level church? They interviewed me when I ran for sheriff, and they had a very liberal vibe to them as well. And I say liberal, and I don't mean that in a denigrating way. I mean they were very accepting, very tolerant, very open. Not generally what you associate with
liberals.
Christians.
It's actually kind of a interfaith church, the Unitarians, as I understand it. But anything else, Stephen, you want to share? Go ahead.
Well, actually, I want to ask y'all about that. So you have your church, right? Yep. The Shire Free Church or whatever y'all call it.
Well, we have two different churches. I am one of the ministers in the Shire Free Church. Arya is the Reformed Satanic Church of Keene.
Well, I'm the high priestess in it.
Yeah.
Okay. So the way that I understand Unitarianism is basically all roads lead to Rome, right? So as long as you have something when you die, you get something after you die. Like if you're a Catholic, you go to Catholic heaven. If you're a Baptist, you go to Baptist heaven. If you're a Satanist, like I don't be rude. Like, I'm not trying to be a butthole here, but like you go to hell, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I don't know, like what you believe. But like
I believe when I die, I will be dead. That is the best way of characterizing my afterlife beliefs.
Okay. And so, like, that's Unitarianism. Is that kind of what the Free Church is? Like, just whatever you believe is what you believe, that's good for you?
So the Shire Free Church, if you go to church.shiresociety.com, you can learn a lot more about it. But the reason it was formed was because we wanted to have an interfaith peace church. So the idea is that a lot of churches, and I'm going to put you on hold because there's some wind noise there, but there's a lot of churches, they don't really believe in peace. They support war.
I've seen Southern Baptist churches arguing, and I say that because that's where I'm from, not to take any particular jab at them, but I've seen them arguing for like stronger nuclear armament and things like that, where Jesus is like, hey, turn the other cheek and forgive your neighbors. It's like, we need more nukes. And it's like, dude.
So the idea is, people who actually support peace need a place where they can go and be around other like-minded people who have a religion and also support peace, so we can learn from each other. Because I'm not of the belief that any one religion is the one true way. I think that everybody has, their own path, and so that's why it's an interfaith church. We want people to come together that agree on peace, and then we can talk about all the rest of the details as far as what each person believes. Because as a panentheist, I've found a lot to like in a lot of different religions, and there's some stuff I don't like. Sure. In a lot of different religions. So I kind of like pick and choose what sounds and what resonates with me inside. But again, it's interfaith. So anyone is welcome within the Shire Free Church.
It sounds like the Shire Free Church is very similar to the Reformed Satanic Church, and that is, it's not so much about what you believe or what you think is coming next or what you want heaven to be like. It's more about what you do right now in this world, right now with your time as a living being. And first and foremost among that, a person should be promoting peace and love.
Right. That is the mission of the church, is to foster peace. And we do that in a variety of different ways. A lot of outreach, including this radio show. Thank you for the call tonight. Definitely appreciate hearing from you. Check out church.shiresociety.com. It's more of a media ministry, but that doesn't mean someone couldn't open up a building with a steeple on it. It just costs a lot to heat those things. Those things are closing down. They're getting sold to businesses around here. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. Grief-stricken families in Uvalde, Texas, are beginning to bury their loved ones a week after a mass shooting at an elementary school left 19 children and 2 teachers dead. The final goodbyes come amid mounting anger over the police response. FSN's Tony Waterman reports from Texas.
5 of the Uvalde victims, including teacher Irma Garcia, were laid to rest on Tuesday, exactly 1 week after they were gunned down in their 4th grade classroom. Funerals will stretch well into June due to the sheer number of victims. But as families say their final farewells, anger is mounting over the police response. In new audio obtained by CNN, a child calling 911 can be heard calling for help, saying they are in a room full of victims, raising questions about why police waited to take down the shooter. Meanwhile, in Washington, lawmakers are racing to reach a deal on gun safety, which would focus on expanded background checks, red flag laws, and possible restrictions on those with a criminal record. It's unclear, though, if the 60 votes needed to support the measures are there in the Senate. Tony Waterman, Texas.
K-pop phenomena BTS have met U.S. President Joe Biden in Washington. On the final day of Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, the superstar group spoke about hate crimes and diversity. FSN's Nick Harper reports from Washington.
BTS have been vocal about racism and spoken out against discrimination. They've donated $1 million to Black Lives Matter and campaigned for the UN's children's fund, UNICEF, to end violence against children. Now they can add to their resume a meeting with the US President Joe Biden, discuss the growing problem of anti-Asian hate crimes and finding ways to increase Asian inclusion. And they welcome the opportunity for the discussion.
And it is a great honor to be invited to the White House today to discuss the important issues of anti-Asian hate crimes, Asian inclusion, and diversity.
I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
U.S. stocks closed out the month on a downbeat note, with inflation concerns still weighing on the minds of traders. And the energy sector was once again in focus on the heels of the European Union's decision to ban the majority of Russian oil imports. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
May is a month many investors will be keen to see the back of. Inflation concerns have pulled down US stocks for weeks, with the Nasdaq falling around 2% over the past month. Inflation was again in focus for traders Tuesday. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell has met with Joe Biden, and the US president has vowed that fighting inflation, which is up at 40-year highs, is a top priority. Looking at how the markets closed, the Dow Jones fell 0.7%, the S&P 0.6%, and the Nasdaq 0.4%.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, a battlefield update from eastern Ukraine, where the Russians have been making substantial progress over the last week, advancing President Putin's aim of annexing the region and putting it under Russian control. Fierce fighting has been continuing, particularly around the city of Severo, Donetsk, so fierce that over the weekend, Ukrainian commanders warned that their forces might have to withdraw. Russian forces have been pushed back from Kiev and the second largest city of Kharkiv, so the Kremlin's focus on eastern Ukraine is now intensifying. And reporter Liz Cookman in Dnipro says civilians are paying the price.
Basically, Russia now occupies 95% of the Luhansk region. They're trying to take the last 2 cities. Many of the people left behind are actually elderly or disabled. They're people who don't have the mobility or the money to leave to go elsewhere. And so it's very difficult. There are a lot of missions to try and evacuate people. Often a lot of it falls on the shoulders of individuals, although some NGOs are trying to help. But many of the people coming out, some of them are being able to flee, but they've spent months in basements. They're already many of them fairly old. It's been very, very traumatic for them.
And on Monday, a 32-year-old French reporter with the BFM TV network died after sustaining a shrapnel wound while attempting to cover those evacuation efforts. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. Grief-stricken families in Uvalde, Texas begin to bury their loved ones a week after the tragic mass shooting at an elementary school. K-pop phenomena BTS meet U.S. President Joe Biden in Washington. And U.S. stocks close out the month on a downbeat note, with inflation concerns still weighing on the minds of traders. That is the latest feature story news. Ira Spitzer reporting.
Our planet
is but a giant petri dish swirling with pathogens, all mixed by the filthy stirring straw that is the world's fauna. Simply by sitting on her eggs and breathing, this duck unleashes a torrent of avian botulism, cholera, and duck plague into the air. These jousting elk slough off bits of skin and fur, sending millions of harmful bacteria into the air. Our closest relative, the chimpanzee, is itself the fountainhead of AIDS. Bitter at the ascendancy of man, these scheming apes brood this deadly virus in their jungle lairs. Nowhere on Earth is safe from the threat of animals. Even in the bitter wasteland of the Antarctic, penguins walk for miles inland, ensuring their afflictions reach every corner of the globe.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live. We are kicking off the third hour of the program. The phones are open if you want to join us. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. They want to feed you bugs. And Conan
to save the planet or something.
Yeah, we'll see about that. Conan wants to talk about it. That's on the way. But I think World War III is probably a little more important, so we're finally going to get into that.
World War III is what leads us to having to eat bugs.
That's going to be their excuse to push it on people, right? Oh, we're running out of food. Food's getting too expensive. Here come the bugs. All right, so we'll get into that coming up here. Again, the phones are open if you want to join us. Whether you want to comment on Ron Paul, who we had on earlier in the show tonight, if you missed that interview, you'll be able to download it later on tonight over at freetalklive.com, so be sure you check that out. And then other things. Here's the story from the Daily Star. According to them, a Kremlin TV propaganda piece has claimed World War III has started and that Russia's horrifying task is now to, quote, demilitarize, unquote, NATO. Russian television anchor Olga Skabyeva, Putin mouthpiece Russia 1, that's one of the government-run channels there. So we know about RT, right? Russia Today, RT, Sputnik, which is the radio version of RT. These are English language. RT's available actually in multiple languages, but they have an English language broadcast that is available all around the planet in various different forms. We know about RT. But most people don't know about the other propaganda that is created by the Russian government, in this case, for the Russian people. So that's what Russia 1 is. It is their quote-unquote news, their propaganda channel.
Oh, she's kind of hot.
I thought the same thing.
Skabyeva. She looks like a Black Widow.
See, I don't know that I disagree that World War III has started, but I think it's going to be a struggle for historians in the future to pinpoint the exact event that was the
beginning
quote,
of it,
beginning of World War III. I think 9/11
or the Civil War if it was to break out.
I think 9/11 would probably be the point that they're going to draw the line at.
She's definitely got a resting bitch face. I'll say that about her.
She's she's got a rough stance to her.
She claimed.
Well, she's got to be. I mean, she's a Russian propagandist.
Yep. She claimed on camera that the war in Ukraine, known in Russia as a special military operation, quote, is now over, unquote. And you mentioned this earlier tonight, Arya. Skabyeva argued the West's provisions of arms to Ukraine meant that the special operation had spilled over into a global conflict as Ukraine showcased new British Wolfhound heavy tactical support vehicles. The anchors.
I mean, we have to think about this, and I'm no fan of Russia, but you got to think about this from their perspective. Let's just say you're playing a strategy game, like the old board game Risk with someone, and you're trying to invade them, but your friend over here just keeps
adding pieces from neighbors,
and you're like, okay, well, this is kind of messed up, and this isn't really fair, and they just keep doing it. And at some point, you're like, all right, well, I guess I have to fight you too, then.
Yep, that sums it up.
Unless that might have been the they might have been planning this from the get-go. Both sides of the coin.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, NATO has certainly been playing the long game, going all the way back to the 50s, probably. Well, NATO didn't really exist, and I don't think, but going all the way back, there were documents that leaked from the Bilderberg group that I remember, and this is the one I always point to, where, like, in the documents that linked for the 50s and the 60s, they allude to events that are going to happen in the 80s and the early 90s, and now with the benefit of hindsight, I can read them and go, oh, okay, well, they planned this thing decades in advance. So whatever they were planning in the 90s or 2000s, right now, these Bilderberg people who control the world, who have representatives who control the world, elected politicians, basically, and business people, they've certainly planned for this. Nothing happens at this scale that surprises them.
NATO was formed in 1949, Arya. It was formed in the aftermath of World War II. So back to the story here. The anchor from Rossiya 1, she said that Russia was, quote, forced to demilitarize both Ukraine and NATO. Of course, we know that NATO had been expanding in recent decades, even though after the fall of the Soviet Union, NATO apparently said they were not going to expand, but then they'd continued to expand.
Oh, yeah.
Well, NATO, as I understand it, was created as a response to the Soviet Union.
That's correct, yeah.
That they wanted to have a Western Union, so to speak, a Western bloc of countries to
NATO
compete with the Soviet
NATO was supposed to stop
bloc.
the Soviet expansion.
Yeah.
Right? Skabyeva said, quote, "It's time to admit, perhaps, that Russia's special operation in Ukraine is now over, in the sense that a real war has started, World War III. We are being forced to demilitarize, not just Ukraine, but NATO as a whole." And that's basically most all of Europe at this point, right? Wasn't Ukraine one of the only countries in Europe that had not yet joined NATO, and they were recently.
I think Finland was one,
but weren't they recently admitting Finland? Aren't they in the process?
In the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I think Sweden is another. They did that largely as a response to the Russian invasion, from what I can tell.
That's right.
Like, Sweden had no interest in joining NATO, and then we should join.
She said further, quote, "It was not only Smerch MLRS with cluster munitions that struck Donetsk. The strikes were carried out with American M777 howitzers," unquote. So basically, again, citing that these other countries' government gangs have gotten involved by sending in not troops, but equipment into Ukraine, and basically saying, look, you want to expand this thing, we're ready to expand this thing.
If Ukraine hadn't received any help from any other country, the stupid invasion wouldn't have lasted longer than 3 days, my bet, because, I mean, they didn't have anything in the beginning.
I think they probably still had a fair bit of stuff, but the United States government, NATO, they're going to act surprised by this. Oh, the Russian military is upset. They played this game before. They did it during World War I and World War II, where they continued arming people, sending guns, sending munitions, sending money, sending all of these things, everything except soldiers, to the British Empire during World War I, and then to the Allies during World War II. And then they were surprised when the Germans attacked or when the Japanese attacked, and they're going to be surprised when the Russians attack here in the near future.
Ukrainian troops have been spotted using armored vehicles kitted with Browning heavy machine guns, as well as Wolfhound support vehicles given to the country by Britain. Separate claims made by Lugansk People's Republic head Leonid Pashnik, who alleged that Ukrainian propaganda was to blame for hatred of Russian activities. He said, quote, "Most people, of course, meet us as liberators with tears in their eyes, seeking to thank the military in person." He's talking about the Russian military. "Many come outside, hug Republican Russian servicemen, saying they were anticipating liberation. Hatred toward everything Russian was promoted in Ukraine. Language, culture, people, and Russia in general. To our great regret, Kyiv and the U.S. were able to raise an entire generation, a nation of nationalists in such a short time."
I mean, that's obviously propaganda, right? I mean,
it's propaganda on both sides.
Sure, but I mean, that's obviously something that's being fed to the Russian people to convince them that the people of Ukraine want this. I mean, we were told the same thing about the war in Iraq. You know, the Iraqi people, they greeted us with smiles and cheers, and we were their liberators. And, you know, reality was a little bit different.
The reality was they were getting greeted with IEDs.
And I imagine that the reality in Ukraine is a bit different as well. But
of course. But we don't know what that is. We have no idea.
No, because they're carefully controlling the internet. But I wanted to bring this up a moment ago. You know, when I was talking about World War II and World War I, we weren't warned. I don't know what people think is going to happen. They think Russia is going to send out, a memo saying, "Oh, by the way, we're going to attack you on this day."
No,
there's not going to be a warning. You keep pushing them, and they're going to attack. We've seen it countless times throughout history. There won't be a warning. You'll just wake up one day and you'll find out, oh, Russians dropped bombs in Alaska.
Well, and apparently there was some TV show in Russia where they were talking about this, what they call the Satan II. In Russia, it's called the Sarmat missile. It's capable of striking targets at 16,000 miles per hour. It is 208 tons, 14 stories high, carries 15 warheads. And they were just talking about that they could bomb both the coasts of the United States with these missiles if they wanted to. Now, of course, there is mutually assured destruction that will probably prevent that from happening. But these guys are now saying on television in Russia, calling this World War III and saying they're going to quote-unquote demilitarize NATO. So who knows where the next strike is going to be, where they're going to roll tanks into next, how this is going to play out. But one thing's for sure, you better expect them prices going to keep going up because the U.S. government's going to keep printing out money in order to fund their associates. They just sent $40 billion over to Ukraine, and that is just the beginning of this, I suspect. You're welcome to weigh in here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover brings her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit shiresociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at shiresociety.com. That's shiresociety.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Phones are open here. You can join us. Number 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. I want to say I'm a big fan of one of our newest advertiser, Truth Smacks. It is absolutely fantastic trail mix. And the lady that makes it, Suzanne, she's a former English teacher, longtime truth seeker. She recently started her own trail mix brand. She makes it, bags it, and seals it up herself in a commercial kitchen down in Naples, Florida. And you can go to truthsmacks.com/shop to smack your friends and family with the truth.
Right in the mouth.
Yeah. No better way to get somebody's attention than through their stomach, and it's really just delicious product. I really enjoyed it, and I'm hoping we're going to get another shipment here soon because I really like it. There's no artificial crap involved here.
Why wasn't I a part of this?
I don't know why. You must have just missed it somehow.
You just
I had it here for like a week. It's probably that week you were gone.
Oh, okay. Well, send us some more.
Made with all raw, unadulterated ingredients. It's awesome stuff. It comes in 2 sizes and 2 flavors. It got the original flavor and then peppermint infused. And the thing that makes it truth related is there's a bunch of quotes on the back of the bag. So basically each bag is an outreach tool. You hand this bag to somebody and they read it and they're going to get hit with a lot of truth quotes on the back. And then there's a couple, as I say, there's a couple different varieties.
A good cereal would also be really good for that because that was probably the packaging that I've read most in my life is the back of cereal boxes.
This is loaded up with great information. Check out truthsmacks.com/shop. They're spreading truth one delicious morsel at a time. It's truthsmacks.com/shop.
Have you seen that meme? That's the kid. This is what we used to read in the mornings, while we ate. And now you have your kids on all their little iPhones and their tablets and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. No, see, I would rather have my iPhone or tablet or phone or whatever to read while eating breakfast because after one meal, I had read everything on the back of that cereal box, and after that, it's just a matter of basically memorizing the back of a cereal box. I could probably still spout some of these useless facts and things like that I learned from reading the backs of cereal boxes, and it would have been so much better if I had been able to just pull up a random book on my phone and read that instead.
I don't even know what they put on the back of cereal boxes these days. I haven't seen one in so long. But I used to like the boxes where you could cut them up and turn them into figures or something.
See, we always bought like the Walmart brand of the giant bags. Yeah, so we didn't have boxes you could. I mean, they did have different boxes like the Great Value brand cereals or whatever, and they did have interesting stuff on the back that you could read. But like all of the cool cereal boxes, like you're talking about, where you could cut out sunglasses or whatever, those were like name brand Kellogg stuff that we didn't have.
We never bought name brand, so I'm not sure what box. Maybe I was getting boxes out of the garbage. Dumpster diving.
It's also, different ages. So maybe back then, the cheaper brands were doing that sort of thing. But by the time I was eating them, they were like, here's a list of boring trivia facts about the United States or whatever, or a crossword puzzle, which is interesting, but it doesn't take a lot of time while you're sitting there eating to find all the words on
the good old days.
Let's go to the phones here. We got Jack on the line in Washington State. Jack, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Well, my question is, did the generic boxes of cereal have prizes in them, or was it only the name brands?
That's a good question. Like the Cracker Jack boxes that always had a little gift in them.
I've never seen
More plastic.
generics with prizes.
Yeah.
I haven't either. I think the closest that I've never seen a regular, like a name brand cereal box with prizes. So wasn't
I
it
don't think they
usually
do it
like
anymore.
you have to collect 5 box tops or whatever and then mail it off?
They had those, but they actually did have cereal boxes that had stuff in it. I don't know if they do that anymore, but I don't pay close attention on a cereal aisle, so I don't know.
Some people do, man. I'm sorry, but some people do. But my question, if Ron Paul was awesome tonight, my question been like, what is Thanksgiving like when Rand is there and they talk politics? Wouldn't you like to be
good question. they, you know what? They probably don't. They probably talk sports ball, because that's their rule in their families. No. This is what we don't talk. This is what we don't ever talk about. And they probably end in the shouting matches too, because that's just how Thanksgivings are supposed to end with your relatives.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I haven't had a Thanksgiving with my relatives in 16 years.
That was that was the actual question that I wanted to allude to.
Really?
Was his kid, and is Rand going to stay true? Because he's a Republican, but he's going to stay. So he's not libertarian.
He's never been as libertarian as his father.
But is he at least going to stay true to his Republican ideals?
I mean, Rand Paul has gone on the record saying that libertarianism is an albatross that people are trying to hang around his neck.
That's right. He did say that.
He isn't a libertarian. He's never going to be a libertarian. He's a liberty-leaning conservative. And that's not the worst thing in the world, but it's no Ron Paul.
Yeah, the apple did not fall directly under that tree.
That's true.
It rolled over a little to the left or the right.
And then last, real quick, Conan brought up like when wars start. Like World War III, what's that spark? Are we going to get one right now? Do you guys know anything about John Brown, the Civil War guy?
Not offhand. Who is he?
The abolish. He was. I can't ever remember that word. But he was against like
abolitionist.
slavery. Yeah, abolitionist, and he ended up getting. I think he was hung when he was like 60 something, and he was like a real. I don't know what word I'd use, but he was somebody that was going against the grain.
Okay.
But yeah, John Brown, he's famous.
What was he famous for?
Getting hung, apparently.
Okay.
No. He fought against the, he fought with the slave rebellion in like the 1850s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he was hung when he was 59 for it.
I'm just saying, you asked what he was famous for, and you've now pointed out that he was hung on 3 times, and you only mentioned his anti-slavery activism on 1 occasion.
No, because Conan had said earlier about kicking off wars, and I think that helped kick off World War II.
Oh, the Civil War, right?
Yeah, I thought you were talking about the 1800s.
Yeah, Civil War.
Okay.
I hit the bong tonight.
All right, brother. Thanks for the call tonight. Appreciate it.
Certainly nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all. John Brown was an American abolitionist leader. According to Wikipedia, he reached national prominence for his radical abolitionism and fighting in Bleeding, Kansas.
What is radical abolitionist? Is that when you like go to war with someone because of you don't like their ideas instead of going out and protesting peacefully?
Well, I mean, if people are trying to own as property other human beings, I'm not sure that peaceful protest is the only right answer to that.
Not the only right answers, but I do believe it was working in this country very slowly.
Sure.
And I don't believe that the Civil War was all about slavery.
But I'm going to say it's not immoral to physically go and free a slave from slavery.
He was a man of strong religious convictions, according to Wikipedia, believed he was an instrument of God, raised up to strike the death blow to American slavery as a, quote, sacred obligation, unquote. He was a leading exponent of violence in the American abolitionist movement. He believed that violence was necessary to end American slavery since decades of peaceful efforts had failed. He said repeatedly that in working to free the enslaved, he was following the Golden Rule as well as the U.S. Declaration of Independence, which states that all men are created equal.
So who hung him? If the North won,
the South.
How did the South get their hands on him? This is way after the Civil War, correct, or is it before?
This was before.
Okay.
He lived until 1859, and I don't know. You have to do your own research.
It was before.
Maybe before and during. I don't know. When did the Civil War start?
Well, if he died in 59, the Civil War started in like 61.
61. Okay. Gotcha. All right, so more coming up here in moments. Whether you want to talk about World War III or radical abolitionism, you can bring up whatever you want here on Free Talk Live.
Karl Wattner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Karl Wattner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Karl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Karl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. Grief-stricken families in Uvalde, Texas, are beginning to bury their loved ones a week after a mass shooting at an elementary school left 19 children and 2 teachers dead. The final goodbyes come amid mounting anger over the police response. FSN's Tony Waterman reports from Texas.
5 of the Uvalde victims, including teacher Irma Garcia, were laid to rest on Tuesday, exactly 1 week after they were gunned down in their 4th grade classroom. Funerals will stretch well into June due to the sheer number of victims. But as families say their final farewells, anger is mounting over the police response. In new audio obtained by CNN, a child calling 911 can be heard calling for help, saying they are in a room full of victims, raising questions about why police waited to take down the shooter. Meanwhile, in Washington, lawmakers are racing to reach a deal on gun safety, which would focus on expanded background checks, red flag laws, and possible restrictions on those with a criminal record. It's unclear, though, if the 60 votes needed to support the measures are there in the Senate. Tony Waterman, Texas.
K-pop phenomena BTS have met U.S. President Joe Biden in Washington. On the final day of Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, the superstar group spoke about hate crimes and diversity. FSN's Nick Harper reports from Washington.
BTS have been vocal about racism and spoken out against discrimination. They've donated $1 million to Black Lives Matter and campaigned for the UN's children's fund, UNICEF, to end violence against children. Now they can add to their resume a meeting with the US President Joe Biden to discuss the growing problem of anti-Asian hate crimes and finding ways to increase Asian inclusion. And they welcome the opportunity for the discussion.
And it is a great honor to be invited to the White House today to discuss the important issues of anti-Asian hate crimes, Asian inclusion, and diversity.
I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
U.S. stocks closed out the month on a downbeat note with inflation concerns still weighing on the minds of traders. And the energy sector was once again in focus on the heels of the European Union's decision to ban the majority of Russian oil imports. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
May is a month many investors will be keen to see the back of. Inflation concerns have pulled down US stocks for weeks, with the Nasdaq falling around 2% over the past month. Inflation was again in focus for traders Tuesday. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell has met with Joe Biden, and the US president has vowed that fighting inflation, which is up at 40-year highs, is a top priority. Looking at how the markets closed, the Dow Jones fell 0.7%. The S&P 0.6%, and the Nasdaq 0.4%.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join us here, bring in whatever you want. Russian propaganda within their own country is now calling it World War III.
Yeah, you kick that dog enough times, and they've been kicking the dog for months now.
Yep,
I predicted this months ago.
They're expanding their operational capacity to target NATO, they're saying now.
Anybody who helped out, anyone who made their takeover, their 3 goals, which was the Donbass area and the Crimea bank, the port, and to basically to give all of those Western Ukrainians the option to basically sovereign out. That was all they wanted, and yet
that's what they said.
And yet it seemed like the whole world, with the exception of China, India, Iran,
and some of Africa,
were sending money, sending food, sending aid.
Oh yeah.
By the way, a lot of that money not going to actually to munitions, to actually weapons, but it was going to NGOs. Like Soros, his special.
They thought
special
they could just
interest
send
groups.
in arms and that nothing else would happen. They thought they could just have themselves a proxy war.
Yeah, now they're acting like, and they're all surprised about. Oh my God, what?
They thought
World
Russia
War
was
III?
just going to sit on their hands the whole time or whatever.
My concern about this isn't really so much how it's going to escalate with Russia, is that I suspect, for whatever reason, China is waiting to take over Taiwan. That seems to be in the relatively near future, and I think that's going to lead to severe problems.
Certainly for Taiwan, it will.
A war between Russia and the United States or NATO or whatever would not be good by any means, but a war between NATO against Russia and China, a worldwide devastation for every human being on the planet, no matter who wins.
I actually don't think it's going to. I don't think all of the devastation from, say, nuclear missiles dropping on cities is going to be the actual problem.
It's economic.
It's going to be economic.
Yeah.
I mean, by the way, Russia doesn't need anyone else's oil. They're good.
No, they're fine.
They don't need their food. In fact, we've been talking about this. I think they've been preparing for this for years. Buying gold. They've got their own food source. They're good to go. They got China to buy their chips from.
Look at the ruble.
They don't need us.
The ruble's doing better than it was before the invasion. It dipped on the invasion, and everybody's dancing on its grave, and then it's come back since then. It's gone higher.
I don't agree that they don't need us. I mean, isolationism is in the end.
They have India. They have China. They're good to go.
Isn't India increasing their oil buys like a significant amount?
Yeah. I think they're getting a.
I mean, the Aztecs had the Incans and stuff that they could have traded with as well, but they weren't anywhere near the level that the rest of the old world was at. Right. I think that Russia, China, India, they could have their little block where they block everyone else on the world, and they are isolationist except with each other. They're going to fall behind technologically and in terms of freedom. That just seems to be how it works.
Russia is a big-ass country. They can afford to be isolationist.
No, they can't.
They have enough of everything.
No, in the long run, no one can afford isolationism.
Well, isolationism is a bad plan, but again, they're not isolated from the whole planet.
No, but they're
only
isolated
from the
They're
US.
still selling their oil to a lot of countries.
Yeah, but 100 creative people working together are a lot better than 3 creative people working
There's
together.
no doubt, Arya, but they're forced into this position to some extent. Now, obviously, they didn't have to invade Ukraine.
I know they're being forced into it. I'm just saying that, you're like, they'll be just fine. They don't need anyone. They could be isolationists. That's certifiably
I just said they have China and India. And they have every other country they're still selling oil to.
They're not going to starve. They're not going to be able to make money on YouTube.
I'm not saying it'll happen in 10 years. I'm saying that if you divided the world and for the rest of all time, Russia, China, and India will only ever trade with each other. Those 3 countries will not survive the eons.
What are you talking about? No, they're the other side of the globe.
I understand that, dude. I'm not saying the other side would survive either.
It's going to be us that suffer. It's going to be us. We are going to suffer economically.
Well, don't ask me a question. Let me answer it.
Prices are going to go up. Certainly, choices are going to go down, but they're not going to starve. You saying they're not going to survive? That's ridiculous. They'll survive
on a long enough timeline. Absolutely.
Well, their empire, just like ours, is not going to. It can't last forever. But not like in the next 10 years.
I have not given a timeline. I don't know why you're assuming.
Okay.
I said in the future.
Okay, my prediction: Russia's going to fall apart in 200 years. That's the way I see it. That's my prediction. Put it in the book.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have a number like that.
We are going to fall apart. We are going to fall apart in the next year.
That 3 countries.
Awesome.
We're going to split up. We're going to balkanize. It's going to be us and Maine and Vermont, the elves, the dwarves, and the halflings. Mordor, you can't have any part of it. Massachusetts, you just stay down there. Texas is going to split off. Yeah, it's going to be different for sure.
Maybe.
And it's going to suck too for 10 years. The next 10 years is going to suck. My prediction.
Over half the oil coming out of Russia goes to the European Union as of right now, according to CNN story published today. 53% of it.
Didn't they recently cut off the pipeline to one of these European countries as well?
I believe they did. Yeah. And of course, they're going to start demanding payment in rubles at some point as well for that.
They've been planning that for a while.
So here's the thing, Arya. I mean, there's no one here defending isolationism. That's a bad plan economically, no doubt about it. but they will survive it. I mean, eventually all countries will fall, as Conan pointed out.
That's
and
not necessarily. That's not at all what I mean, though. That's why I pointed out the old world versus the new world. What you had there is basically the same concept. You had these countries and these people; they're all communicating with each other. Yeah, but they were millennia behind technologically. And if you fast forward far enough, those old world, new world countries, nations, peoples would not have survived and colonized the stars or whatever.
The last time I checked, astronauts are using Russian rockets to get up into space. All of our technology, all of our equipment, our iPhones, everything's coming from China.
That's not true. The SpaceX rockets were using American rockets.
We don't produce anything anymore.
Well, I just gave you an example where that's not true, but okay.
I mean, actual equipment that we use in our daily lives, like our phones and our computers and our TVs.
You got to keep in mind,
and our food and our fertilizer. Oh my God! The basic building blocks of what we need to survive, we don't even produce anymore.
You got to keep in mind that the United States for a long time has been coasting on the relative freedom that it had early on. And we don't have as much of that freedom now. Now, to be fair, technology hasn't been affected significantly. Like, there's not a ton of government regulations inhibiting technological developments, but there are a ton of regulations just in general.
Patents.
And patenting and all that stuff.
I certainly don't want to sound like I'm defending the United States or saying that the United States is going to outlive Russia or anyone else.
The U.S. is going to have a tough time, too.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to have a tough time because
I think the U.S.
is
going to collapse before Russia and China do. I think I'm with you on that one, Coden. I think the U.S. probably is measuring its days in years.
Yeah.
Whereas the others are probably measuring them in decades, if not centuries.
Yeah, and time will tell how this is all going to play out, but I tend to agree with you on this, Conan. The economic is going to be the real hit. There's not much to be concerned as far as nuclear strikes are concerned, but that said, if Russia is going to expand the violence, who knows what that's going to look like.
I think it's going to look just like Ukraine. I think they're just going to they're going to slowly move their tanks
move westward
over the roads that they now occupy and they now own, and they'll continue to send missiles from Russia over into these countries without actually having to go there physically step on their over the boundaries.
They have to successfully take Ukraine before they can do that, though, right?
I think they already own the West. They've owned the West for weeks now, right?
I don't know. I've not been paying close attention.
Well, here's the problem:
because you can't believe anything you see.
Yeah, exactly. You can't believe any of it.
You can't believe the Russians, and you can't believe the Western media. In fact, I think you can believe less from the Western media. Here's
the way I see it: the very fact that this lady's coming out and says we're moving ahead makes me believe that everything we've heard about Ukraine winning has been bullcrap the whole time. The fact that they are why would you come out and say this? That all right, now we've decided that we have established what we have come in here into Ukraine to do, and now we're moving on to the next step, and that is to basically demilitarize all of NATO. And you know what? I'm not sad about it because I've know people are going to say that I'm the Russian apologist, but I've said it before. I see a dog that has been getting kicked in the ribs for many years, for decades, and I'm not happy with it. I don't have a problem with them demilitarizing enemies, people who I don't necessarily agree with.
I don't think she's declaring victory, though. I don't think she's saying we accomplished in Ukraine what we were setting out to accomplish. I think she's just trying to say that it's bigger than just Ukraine. That's my understanding.
The number here is 603-283-6160. Coming up, bugs. They're pushing them hard.
It's coming.
Man wants to talk about it. It's on the way. Free Talk Live.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market. Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Email is easy, instant, and free, and that can be real embarrassing. Email lacks the eye contact and body language you get in face-to-face conversation, or the tone of voice and other nuance you hear in a telephone conversation. Email is just words, often few words. We're all smothering in spam, so we often reply in terse fashion that's easy to misunderstand. And email doesn't cost you a postage stamp, and it lacks the deliberation time it'd take to walk to the snail mail box. So it's easy to succumb to the "oh yeah" stimulus response trap. When in doubt, don't snap back at snippy messages you get. You may have mistaken the sender's intent. And unless you're sending AOL to AOL, there's no unsend. For more tips on critical communication skills for the way things are now, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
There are basically 2 types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can join us in these remaining moments. We have enough time. You can dial in at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And joining you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
The Transformer called Aria.
And Conan.
You can join us online anytime. Just head over to freetalklive.com. We do have a chat server, by the way, over at chat.freetalklive.com. It's a Matrix chat, which means it's running on our server. So there's not some mega tech corporation that's ruling over you on the Matrix chat server. It is federated, which means you can connect to other Matrix chat rooms through our server and vice versa. Yep. If you already have a Matrix account elsewhere, you can join some of the rooms on our server, although there are actually several rooms that I chose to say, you know what, we only want people who are on our server in that room, because you can do that. When you make a new room, you can set a few different rules about it. You can make it public. You can make it private. You can say, is it encrypted or is it not encrypted? Or in this case, as I chose with some of these rooms, you should be a listener of the show to join a few of them. But some of the other ones come on in from anywhere on the whole internet. So it's a pretty cool system. You can make your own room. You can administer that thing how you want to. We won't even know it exists if you make it private. The number, you can check it out over at chat.freetalklive.com. That'll give you instructions on how to join the chat server. That's chat.freetalklive.com. We go back to your calls and thoughts. Coming up, the story about the bugs. They want to feed them to you. Conan's got that story. But first, Olivia in Arizona. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead. Olivia, are you there? Olivia going once?
Hello?
There you
Yeah,
are.
I'm
We've
sorry.
got you. Go ahead.
Hey. So yesterday I called about moving to New Hampshire when you don't really have any money, and I remember you guys talking about mutual aid societies before, so I was kind of wondering, do you guys have a mutual aid society in New Hampshire? Is that part of the Shire Free Church outreach? And as part of your outreach, do you guys pray with people? What are some of the other things that you guys do?
So a mutual aid society, as I understand it, is a group of people that come together for a common sort of charitable purpose. There was an organization, I don't know if it still exists, called Shire Sharing that Free Staters used to run, and they would give out food on Thanksgiving to poor families that had sort of signed up and would receive that. There has never been anything to the point of having a 365-day-a-year distribution or anything like that. The Free Staters don't have. There's not enough Free Staters here. There's not enough wealth for some sort of a program like that. But
They will help you unload your moving van.
That's true. But what they do, I think one of the reasons why that's not happening anytime soon is because those sort of bases are already covered. Most of the areas in New Hampshire already have what they call here in Keene a community kitchen, where there's already people who are donating food to, essentially, it's a local food bank, basically. You can look at it that way. So that exists here, and so there's no point in trying to compete with them because they do a good job, and they're already serving plenty of homeless people and people who are down on their luck. So there's not really much that, I don't think needs to be done to add that competition. But if you are talking about moving up here and not taking care of yourself, then that's probably not going to fly real well. The folks that are part of this movement are very independent people. We're not against helping people, but you don't want to just give people a handout. You want to make sure that people are able to take care of themselves, and that if they fall on hard times, you give them a hand up, but at the same time, you don't want to keep taking care of them. And so, while people will help you move into a house here, most people can't expect any, much more assistance in that way. If somebody needs constant assistance to live, they're not likely going to find a whole lot of that from the Liberty community up here. I don't know if that's what you were asking, but I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
No, I got you. And I was wondering, do you guys, so as ministers, do you guys offer I've seen some churches do you can call for a chaplain and pray with them, or I was just kind of curious what else you guys do in addition to outreach and pamphlets and the show.
Well, define prayer, right?
I guess talking with people and kind of holding their intention with them, kind of more of the.
I mean, absolutely. I know non-ministers do that sort of thing.
Sure. I mean, I've participated.
The reason I ask is because one of my favorite songs growing up was the Disturbed song Prayer. And in hindsight, there's nothing really fancy about it except the one line in it where he says, "This is the way I pray." And he's talking about rock music essentially being the way that he prays. And that stuck with me my entire life.
Yep.
Because prayer is this idea of becoming one with the universe, helping other people, becoming one with other human beings,
sending out your vibrations.
Yeah. These are all forms of prayer. I know a lot of Christians, like the hardcore, the real Christians, would say that, a Christian should never stop praying. They should constantly, every waking moment, be engaged in some form of prayer with their deity. But obviously they don't mean, kneeling with their hands together and that sort of nonsense. So prayer takes countless different forms. And I would argue that, playing the guitar, doing the show, these are all prayers.
It could be a mantra for some people, and it could be meditation or group meditation for others. I've certainly participated
Yoga.
in those
Listening
things.
to someone talk about their problems, that's certainly helping them pray.
Yep, and I've done that as well. I certainly have consulted with many people who've had various different problems. But each minister does things differently. Again, it's the Shire Free Church is an interfaith church, and so a Muslim is going to approach the answer to that question that you asked differently than a pantheist like myself, or a Satanist like Arya, or a Christian, for instance. So I hope that answers your question, Olivia, and thank you for the call tonight. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Yeah, we definitely want movers here who are self-sufficient. We want people who are intending to take care of themselves, who are not looking for a handout. I'm not saying that's what Olivia was looking for, but those people do exist. I remember there was a guy that moved up here. His name was Seamus, and it was this old guy. He may still be around. I don't know. But he moved up with his wife, and I guess somebody told him that the Free State Project meant that everything was free.
Oh, my goodness.
And so he literally thought that he was going to have a job waiting for him, a house waiting for him, and that there would just be all these things just given to him on hand and knee when he arrived.
Guy.
And then when he got here and it turned out that wasn't the case, he actually called up what was called
complained?
Pork 411. It was called Pork 411 back in the day. It was like a messaging service where you would leave a message and then it would be sent out to a bunch of recipients. And he called up to bitch about the fact that there was no job waiting for him and there was no one here to give him a room to stay in. And he was like this welfare guy that came up here, and then he subsequently ended up getting on welfare.
Of course.
And then creating a YouTube channel where he made threats against free staters.
If you want welfare, move to Vermont. They got lots of them over there.
Yeah, if you want a welfare state, don't come to New Hampshire. Anyway, Conan, what about bugs?
I don't know that we have enough time. But you know what? I think the gist of this article is they want us to eat bugs. We know this. And live in pods and to be happy with
nothing.
With renting everything. But if you really, really want to get your message across, you need to start with the kids. That's exactly what they're doing in England. Children at 4 primary schools in Wales are set to take part in workshops organized by scientists and teachers to inform them about the benefits of eating alternative protein like bugs.
Is it just going to inform them, or is it going to have them like taste sample bugs, or like, hey, instead of eating that cheeseburger in the lunchroom, why don't you just have some of these crickets?
I thought they were actually going to start putting it right into the cafeteria. Just going to town,
but they can't get away with that.
But not yet. But I think what they're doing here is they're going to have some activities, walk around the circuit and try different bugs, and with different flavors, and have a big board up with this is where your bugs come from, so it's all good, and this is how you're saving the planet because bugs are supposedly less carbon emitting than chickens. And we've talked about, Arya, I think you missed, it was a great show where I broke down the meat to grain ratio. The whole argument is bugs are more sustainable. They eat less food and therefore produce more protein than, say, a cow would, and that is absolutely correct, but not a chicken. So when I think a lot of these
isn't
people,
the calorie difference kind of important too? Because how many crickets do you have to eat to equal like one chicken breast?
Correct. It is absolutely this matters in the end, and how sustainable are these bugs? Because I've heard of whole bug farms getting wiped out by a disease. And it happens to chickens too. They're culling, as we know, they're culling lots of chickens in this country because of the supposed avian flu. But no, this is horrible. As the urban gardener here in Keene, I am very, very. This is very important to me. Self-sufficiency, food self-sufficiency, and I can tell you what: if I thought bugs were the way to go, I would have been doing it years ago. I'm calling bullcrap on all this. Eat chicken.
They're going to keep pushing it, and we're going to keep an eye on it, I'm sure, as it develops. We'll see you tomorrow. freetalklive.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
This is the Liberty Radio Network, broadcasting the latest liberty-oriented audio content 24 hours a day at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. Grief-stricken families in Uvalde, Texas are beginning to bury their loved ones a week after a mass shooting at an elementary school left 19 children and 2 teachers dead. The final goodbyes come amid mounting anger over the police response. FSN's Tony Waterman reports from Texas.
5 of the Uvalde victims, including teacher Irma Garcia, were laid to rest on Tuesday, exactly 1 week after they were gunned down and their